Welcome to the Growing Guelph podcast. As always, I'm the creator and host of Growing Guelph, Jordan Sloggett. Today's episode is my conversation with Lauren Martin, the founder of Cool Ant Creatives. I think this might be the longest chat that we've ever featured on this show, at just over 2 hours long. Lauren's story is a very Guelph one. She came here to school, she fell in love with the downtown core, and decided to stay after moving away for some jobs, as many of us have done. In this conversation, we talk about her navigating that post-university phase of her life, moving away for early jobs, coming back, how the pandemic and a big career reset helped push her towards making things, learning by doing, and eventually building Cool Ant Creatives. We also get into the deeper of why behind what she's created, structured play for adults, building welcoming spaces for people, trying new things without pressure, how her events have grown, including the Fairy and Iron Renaissance Festival, which is now kind of has a bigger fantasy world that's been built all around it. As you can tell, I really enjoyed having this conversation with Lauren and getting to revisit it during this edit. She's clearly someone bringing a ton of energy to bringing groups of people together. So no matter who you are or what brings you joy, I'd bet there's a Cool Ant Creatives side branch that would interest you. Links to everything Lauren is up to in the description and our full conversation right now. Well, Lauren, thanks for joining me on the podcast today. I'm really excited to talk all things Cool Ant Creatives and just to learn a little bit more about yourself and your story.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah, thanks for making your way out on a Friday out here. I guess just to start, what's your story, especially as it kind of pertains to Guelph as a city, and what is it about this community that made it feel like the right place to build Cool Ant Creatives?
I did not grow up here, so I came to Guelph for the first time for school. I went to U of G for landscape architecture and loved my experience there. It was in fourth year where I gave myself a challenge that I wanted to try something new every day. And so it was in fourth year that I really learned about Guelph and kind of beyond that nightlife that all the students know
Isn't
about.
That so funny? So I have a sort of similar story. Came to Guelph, didn't really know about Guelph before I came here for school, but it wasn't until I was in third year when I started dating my girlfriend, now wife. She was in fourth year. She lived downtown. That was like the first time where on a weekend I went out to downtown and we went to like the farmer's market and you kind of see downtown during the day and
this
stuff.
is what it looks like.
Yeah.
Oh.
And you get a little bit more of a sense of like, oh, this is a real city. It's not just campus. And then like, I live near the mall neighborhood.
Right.
It's easy to kind of forget that Guelph is a city and not just a university.
Right. Yeah.
But sorry, I interrupted
you.
you.
That's exactly it, though. I went downtown for the first time and realized how much it had to offer and how many things that you could really enjoy. And because downtown's just so full and vibrant of locally owned spaces, which I just prioritize so much in my life already. So I just realized
fewer
how
of them
great
now,
it was.
but I shouldn't say that. There's always new ones coming up, but there's some classics, and I'm already going to be the old person who is holding on to the things that were here when I first got here. But one of my first favorite places that doesn't no longer exist in Guelph is it was Disarray's Antiques.
Oh yes, the amount of things I have from there.
Yes,
is in my first. That was from my first place in Guelph. Is hilarious. Yes.
I got a couple great posters and that's something, and I know he still lives in town and he does some like the Ward night markets and that. Right. I'd love to have him on the podcast. I'm sure he has 100 amazing stories because that place was such a cool place to go into. You kind of had to tiptoe around and carefully move really stuff to sort sideways. And then sometimes you're like, maybe I'll see what's on that bookshelf eventually if the layers ever allow me to get to that. But he really liked to curate really cool displays. Yes. I remember he had a shelf full of old analog phones and just very cool things. But now it's a barbershop, which is cool. But
so we need those too, I suppose. I'd be happy with longer hair if I got to get some antiques.
Yeah, I guess anything's the turnover is nice in terms of that's part of. You don't want your downtown to be too stagnant in terms of nothing ever changes.
Right. Yeah.
You don't want complete turnover where it's just like a new pizza shop and a new barber shop every 6 months. So somewhere in the middle is good. And there's plenty of institutions that are
Yeah, I mean, it's a good sign if people are able to retire. That's a good sign. You just hope that that's where the
and then
where the turnover happens from.
Yeah. So if you don't mind me asking, where did you move to Guelph from? Like, where'd you grow up?
So I actually grew up in a really small town. I call it the gray area between Newmarket and Barrie.
Okay.
So it's called Beaton.
Okay.
Or Tottenham. I actually grew up in between the two of them.
I'm familiar with Tottenham.
Yeah.
On a map,
there's also Alliston out there, that's where I went to high school. So a lot of people know Alliston.
I've worked in farming and agriculture, so Alliston
Potatoes?
Sounds like.
If you did potato farming,
I didn't do, but I did like agriculture marketing largely. So
right.
I know a lot. I know a little bit of a lot.
Right.
I didn't do like a whole lot of deep dives, but Alliston is at least
right.
sounds like an agriculture town that
yes,
I've heard of.
Well, a lot of them went to school in Guelph as well, so you may
Nice.
have met a lot of Allistonians from university because a lot of them came here for the agricultural programs, especially if they're Dutch. Then you know for sure they're from Alliston, and they're probably friends with me because I somehow became friends with all of them.
Yeah, one of those small towns everyone knows everyone.
Exactly.
Well, so we're both of the same group of people that came here for school and then sort of fell in love with the city and have stayed in the city. So.
Yes. Well, I didn't actually stay in the city, and that's where
I did the same thing.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know if you did. I went here for school, lived here for a little bit afterwards, and then went and lived in Oakville and Toronto for 5-6 years. And that, but
I think maybe you probably had the same experience where, I went to school here. I really learned to love the space, and I grew up in such a small town that I kind of just thought that this is what it's like, and I'm thinking I'm living in a big city because. There's more than one stoplight.
You could always tell. I remember this in like first year or second year university, where the people, depending on where they grew up, they had very different opinions about like downtown Guelph. Like the Toronto kids were like, "Oh, we're going downtown," but like they would totally be comfortable, and for them it was just like, yeah, we're going to some bars in this like small town. And then the kids who grew up in the middle of nowhere were like, we're going downtown, keep an eye on your wallet, like and just this worlds collide for these people that grew up in very different situations, and Guelph's just kind of right in the middle of as we just said, a very cool downtown that has a very fun nightlife. I drove by all the students out on Thirsty Thursday yesterday, which is always just kind of fun to see.
Good time.
Yeah, they have fun.
They looked cold but happy.
They just have to vibrate with that excitement, and then that keeps them warm, I assume, right? Oh, I remember the days of not wanting to do coat check.
Yeah, $2 coat check. That's crazy.
Yeah,
that's crazy. I could use that money to buy myself like a burger.
That's what the pre-drink was for, right? To keep you warm. But and we got off track there. But we were talking about you were talking about that you went to school and then you kind of thought of Guelph as a big city, but then so you graduated and then,
so I would kind of thought that this culture that Guelph had was the culture of a city. I just thought that this was what it was always going to be like. So, we're in fourth year and you start hearing, I'm kind of new to the job force, and you start hearing like, oh my gosh, like it's so hard to get a job out there. So I take the first job that I get. And it was a great job. It was at a landscape architecture company out in Picton. So that's out in Prince Edward County, which is another small town. And I'm talking to my friends about it, and they're like, Lauren, you are so like outgoing, you talk to everybody, you're gonna have no troubles making friends. And then they're hyping me up. I'm like, yeah, you're right, I'm gonna have no trouble making friends. So I go out there, and I did make some really good friends that I'm still friends with to this day, so I don't want to minimize that, but it was so hard to make friends. Oh my gosh, because it just wasn't set up for that. Now Picton has like kind of an up and coming, and people are excited about it. But then it was the demographic was not in my favor, let's say, as like a 22-year-old single girl kind of living out there. So I have some pretty funny stories about trying to make friends, which I'll save for later and try to stay on topic. But it was really hard. Yeah. It was really hard living out there, even given that I did have some like great support. It was really difficult being in that space. So when I eventually applied for another job back in this area to be closer to my family, well, I had the choice of moving back to Guelph or to Burlington or to Hamilton or something in the area. And I didn't want to move back to Guelph originally. I thought if I moved back to Guelph, the magic it once had would be gone. I thought that I'd move back here. I wasn't going to be in school anymore. My friends weren't just going to be out and about anymore.
Yeah.
It wasn't going to be the same.
It's easy to have that kind of narrative about your life where you're like, no, the Guelph chapter was chapter 2 and I'm on chapter 3, and like it's got to be somewhere new and somewhere different,
you have to move
right?
forward and do something else. And there was a bit that I was kind of couch surfing as I was trying to find, and it was getting really hard to find rentals. So I was looking around and trying to find a place. And during that, one of my coworkers was living in Guelph, and he's talking about how, I went to Atmosphere last night, or I went and I had drinks over at Royal City, and like it just made me go, okay, wait, I actually do want to be back there again. Like I miss those things, that I don't need it to be exactly what it was before for it to be something new. And I made the choice to, instead, I'm going to move back to Guelph, but instead of moving just back to where I was and hoping to fall back into the life I used to have, I'm going to try and create something new in Guelph. So I moved downtown into a space there, and I worked for a while I was there. And during the pandemic, I was let go.
Sorry, I'm dropping pen.
You're just like, dang it. I was so comfortable sitting cross-legged.
Oh, yes. Revealing the behind the scenes of how I sit here. But,
I'm
sorry.
really like laying it out. Like, everybody uses cross-legged. You're not going to believe this. Breaking news.
So sorry, I interrupted you there. And
okay.
I can relate. I had a similar layoff story, like April of the pandemic, where, it was like the world shutting down.
What? Like, working from home was very difficult for me, and I tried to express that, and unfortunately there were just so many things working against me in that time, and I lost my job, and it was upsetting, and there was a moment where I was like, oh my gosh, how do I do this again? I don't want to get back into a job working from home. Like, starting a job in the pandemic just sounded like my nightmare.
Yeah.
So instead
I started
of doing
several during the pandemic, and all of them were
was
very...
it a nightmare?
Some more than others. Some were more just like weird dreams, but some were definitely nightmares.
I ate too much cheese before I went to bed.
Exactly.
Some were straight
I
up
found
nightmares.
it was always like you could kind of make friends and become close with people, but it would take like 6 months to get to where in person in an office you'd be with people like 2 months in, because you just can't replace that like in person, even just like the stereotypical kind of like looks that you can share with people where like you both get the same email or someone says something and you can kind of exchange a look. Like you can't do that over Zoom.
Right.
You can't, like, it's just so much harder to recreate that in working from home.
Yeah, and also, and this is something that definitely became part of Plant Creatives, I am such a person-driven person. It was really hard for me to feel motivated to do work when there were it just felt like I was working for a robot, and that just didn't give me much to work with, because it's just me sitting in the corner of my tiny little bedroom, like a little apartment, doing work while my roommate's watching Vanderpump Rules in the other
That's
room.
like worst case scenario too. I mean, I had at the very least like a separate work environment to work out of, but there's only so much you can do by using like I'm a big fan of ambient noise machines and stuff, and there's some good ones that are like the noise of a cafe in the background, and like you can do little things like that to trick your brain, but it only goes so far.
Red Brick became like my sanctuary. That's where I worked for a long time. It was just Red Brick, because I needed that background. I needed the body doubling. I needed those things are so important for me to be able to work well, that it was very hard, especially because I was very early on in my ADHD endeavor of getting diagnosed at 28, and I was just kind of learning what do I need to be able to have a successful career, and I was very closely working with a therapist on how to be better in an office space, and then I get torn out of the office space and told I have to work on this little fold-up card table in the corner of my room, and I can't even stretch my right elbow out because it would hit the door and then or the wall, and the door behind me is going to slam me in the back of the head if my roommate comes in too fast. Like, it just was not a good space. So anyway, so I get let go from the job. Disappointing, but I decided, you know what, I'm going to take a moment and consider options. So during that time, I learned to sew, and it was just hand sewing. I wanted to make something for my niece, as my nephew was, how do I say this in not a weird way, in my sister's stomach. as I wanted to make something for
He
my
was
niece.
waiting to arrive.
It was being baked.
Yeah.
Yes, I learned to sew because I wanted to make something for my niece for the arrival of my nephew coming soon. I wanted to show her things that grow. So I started learning to sew little vegetables out of felt, and it was just so
nice.
cute, and it was just a nice little hobby to do while I'm trying to decide what to do with my life. So it was kind of a nice light thing to do while I'm thinking of something quite heavy.
I'm just curious about
Yeah,
this
of course.
now. Is it like needle felted, or
No.
were you okay? My wife does needle felted art. That's why I ask.
So I one of our workshops is needle felting, and it was probably one of my favorite workshops.
Oh,
I've
cool.
done. I tell people all the time my favorite craft that I've done has been like my favorite actual like workshop itself has been needle felting, and like my favorite like project that I take away is probably my leather sunglass case from our leather working course. Anyways, I have all of our different. Anyways, I can talk about those too, but so yeah, I learned to sew, made these things for my niece and nephew. And, I start doing that, and then I have all these friends having babies. So then they're saying, oh, I want a baby mobile. So I start making baby mobiles for everybody. And eventually I was like, you know what? I'm going to try out a market. And at this point, I've gone from being in university to living in a place where I don't know anyone, and I'm in Guelph. And this whole time, and there's a pandemic, and I've been just trying to make friends. I've been trying to make my group. And I've met acquaintances, but I want to make deep friendships. And I was really struggling to do that.
That was so hard during the pandemic.
So
I moved
hard.
back to Guelph in 2020, and it was like, oh, maybe we knew some people in town, but when everyone had like isolated social bubbles that included their like best friends and family, people were not open to, hey, let's meet some acquaintances and maybe make new friends.
Right.
Like it was not a time for friend making, and it took so long for the slow opening, and I don't even think we're back yet because we're still living through it.
I've definitely noticed a huge difference in. I mean, I can talk about that too, but so I moved back here, and the pandemic. I learned to sew.
Yeah, you were trying to make connections.
And so I started selling things at markets, and it was almost like for the first time I met my people. And there's a lot of little tidbits and little seeds that were planted along the way from university until this point, but there were multiple times where I would constantly ask, like the common denominator was every time I'd ask myself, what do I wish existed to be able to make my life better? What do I wish existed to be able to make friends more? And I would always think back to the idea of the buddy bench. So I used to be a landscape designer for playgrounds. And something I learned about while doing that is something called a buddy bench. And it's literally just a bench that people will put into a playground that, is like a cute kidsy bench. And the idea behind the programming of the bench by like the teachers or facilitators would say, if you are feeling lonely and you feel like you don't have a friend and you want a friend to play with, go sit on the buddy bench. And if you see someone sitting on the buddy bench, go ask if they want to be friends with you. Go ask if they want to come play with you. And so it's this really sweet idea of being that vulnerable and saying, hey, I actually am really lonely right now. I really want someone to play with me. And then someone going, oh my gosh, I can play with like the whole time. I didn't know you wanted to play.
One of those concepts that's like, we allow children to express their emotions that openly and have those sorts of systems. Yes. And then as adults, it's just like, no, go deal with like online dating and like staying connected to your friends from high school and just figure out like, like imagine if we had that opportunity as a, I mean, I guess that's like what you're getting at.
That's what I'm trying to do. Yeah. I will say that I'm giving a really long answer, but it does cover a lot of the questions. So I'm like, he can splice these into a different spot if he needs to.
And you know what? It's
I'm giving you the full.
I might keep this whole back and forth right in it because it's, that's part of what I like about podcasts and why I want to do podcasts.
I'm kind of like letting myself go a little bit.
We're not a radio show. We don't have to stay within an hour. We don't have ad breaks every 15 minutes to get to. So
I'm just saying, I'm being really
give me the long answer,
because I'm knowing that there's that flexibility. But like, if you need me to cut it up, I can. Anyway, so
you're looking for that buddy bench.
Yeah. So I start thinking about the concept of that buddy bench, and maybe it wasn't about me being outgoing, and it's about me finding my people. It's not the same thing. You can't just be outgoing to someone who doesn't want a friend. Yeah. It's not going to work. You can,
but it ends up being a very one-sided. Like...
ends up being a really weird conversation where they're trying to run away and you're chasing them. Like, it doesn't really work. And I had, yeah, quite a few times where I tried that, and people just look at me like, oh, why is she talking to me?
Yeah.
You start feeling like you're hitting on people, but you're like, I swear I just want to be your friend. Like, you don't owe me anything. I just want to get a drink with you and maybe hang out later. That's all I want. So anyways, it just, I started having this realization that, you know, as I'm starting to sell at these markets, I'm meeting all of these people who are also prioritizing shopping local. They're prioritizing crafting, and they're just excited about showing me this thing they made with their hands. And I realized that it was more about finding other people who were also looking for me. It was more about finding people that had niche interests that are similar to mine. It was about putting myself in a space where my community exists. So that's something that I finally was feeling out of these markets, was I was meeting other people, and they were all different ages, you know, their sexualities, their gender, like everything was so different about all of us, but we all were just there because we just love to do a little craft. Mm-hmm. We just wanted to make, and we took ourselves seriously enough that we wanted to sell it, but not so seriously that we are like on Shark Tank. Is that what it's called? No, that's a movie.
No, it's called Shark Tank in America. In Canada, our version of it is called Dragon's Den. Yes.
Wait, but isn't Shark Tank a movie?
Probably a movie called that, but it's called Shark Tank. Yeah.
Did I just say a Pixar movie? You're so seriously taking yourself so seriously. You are a cartoon shark. That's how serious you are. So,
but you're right. I mean, I've had a little bit of that.
Sorry.
Yeah.
That's
is that the one with Will Smith?
Yeah,
there's one that has a bunch of.
Yeah. I was like just too old for. I just like aged out of that when it came out.
Yeah,
it was too cool for cartoons.
I have a little bit of that experience of what some of those markets are like. My wife with her art,
right?
Red Squirrel Tail Art. I can always plug her on this podcast.
Oh my gosh, I've definitely met her before.
Yeah, I think she said that she might have even emailed you, or you guys had talked a little bit about doing a thing, but. Yeah, my wife sells needle felted art with Red Squirrel Tail, and so you know I've helped her at a couple markets, and it's always a really fun day of like, it's a long day and it can be exhausting, but there's this like energy in the air of like, you're right, everyone has a similar kind of vibe, and you're all selling at a local market. It's not like a cutthroat. It's like a very much everyone feels like. Yeah,
exactly it.
Like you're not like edging each other up to try to like get the sales. Like you kind of understand that.
Like there's the process behind running a market, and we can dig more into it, but is very much like the way I see myself is I'm just the treasurer. Mm-hmm. So everybody is kind of pouring the same time and effort and money into the same bucket.
Right.
And then I'm just going, okay, we're going to distribute it. You know, we're going to put this % towards having the venue. We're going to put this towards having marketing. We're going to put this much towards, you know, making sure you guys all get a bag of chips. Like, we're putting towards all of these things. And how am I going to take that money and budget it out to make sure that we're able to get everything done?
It's like working as a cooperative versus like a corporate run structure.
That's the way that I see it from my perspective. Sorry, no, yeah, I think your wife, I think what it was is that years ago, she needed certain colors of green felt.
Sounds like something she'd need. Yeah.
So she messaged me being like, hey, do you have, and I like need it today. And I was like, yeah, come on over. And I used to live over on Aramosa, and she came over there, I believe, and bought a few pieces off.
This sounds right. I probably drove her there.
Yeah,
if that was happened.
Years ago.
Yeah.
Like, this would have been, I guess it would have been post-pandemic. So it probably would have been like 2021 or 2022.
Yeah, that makes sense.
That's so funny because I remember, because I don't think I've actually worked with her at a market. I don't think she's ever been to one of my markets.
I don't think so.
I don't think so.
She slowed down on some of the market things. She's still selling at redsquirreltail.ca. I should know that, but yeah.
So yeah, I started doing markets. I met my people, and I just really felt like it was nice just to be surrounded by people who valued the same things that I valued. And I just really enjoyed that. And I kind of just started wanting to be friends with everybody. I'm just looking around being like, oh my gosh, do you think they're going to want to hang out with me? Do you think they're going to want to hang out with me? And I actually do this party every year with a bunch of friends that I've met through this called New Year, New Friends. So I end up having a party. I'm like, wait, don't say it here where I'm having it. People are going to show up at my house. Where I just invite all the people I met that year, and I say, come on by, like, bring your friends. And then it's just a bunch of people that don't know each other, and we all fun. Just meet each other, and it's just
It's also
really
a good
fun.
test of like who gets along with who, and
Yeah, it's just fun. It's just kind of a good time for me to, with our lives are so busy. It's nice to be able to set a time aside just to say,
yeah.
I just want to see everybody in one room for a quick second.
I mean, that's such a. Not only are we socializing less out in like public places, but people are having gatherings less.
Because we
Like,
don't have the space.
well, we don't
You
have the
know?
space. Oh,
Yeah.
yeah, that's a big thing, and there's a real tragedy of the fact that like everyone's so accessible, but everything now has to be pre-planned. Like people used to just show up at each other's houses, and I don't know if that would be good for me or not. Like I'm someone who, if I don't entertain people for a long enough period of time, my living space just gets more and more messy. So I rely on like inviting friends over, and then like, okay, people are coming over on Saturday. Let's like clean the house throughout this whole week,
I love that.
and
Yes.
like that's a really good motivator. So maybe if I had neighbors that would just stop by at any time, and I'd know that, that would be like a good motivation factor
Yes.
for me to keep like my house clean.
I've seen that
So-
as like an ADHD hack, where someone was like,
Oh yeah, like
I just
you
need a
call
friend.
your.
Yeah.
It's something that I've seen that too. Like if
Yeah.
you your friend with ADHD, just call them and tell them like you're coming over.
Yeah,
and then
don't
45 minutes
actually.
later, be like, just kidding. I just knew you needed to clean your place. So,
Gotcha. Honestly, yeah, it would work for me every time.
yeah, it might result in some really not like organizational cleaning, but the kind of cleaning where like everything gets shoved into a closet type
doom
cleaning. but-
bags galore. That's my favorite way to clean. Is just throw it in a bag, put it in the basement, quick.
Yeah.
Yeah. Have you heard of the idea of if you want a village, you have to be a villager?
Yes. Yeah.
I love that.
That topic has come up on this podcast before too. Just that, and it can be hard too. And like part of being a villager means like doing the not fun thing, like doing the life work with each other, right? Like co-living with your friends, meaning like go grocery shopping together, go do the
It's
life
funny you call
errands
them
that you have to do.
Because that's my favorite. I love doing errands. My friend will text me being like, "Hey, I need to go to Shoppers. Do you want to come?" And I'm like, "I'm ready."
But yeah,
Pick me
like
up.
that's such an important thing to do because then you're actually living life together, and you avoid that problem of seeing your friends once every 3 months and then you're just playing catch up, where
Right.
you're telling them about all the life you lived before the last time you saw them. And this is partly why it's so easy to make friends when you're in school and work, because you're co-living with each other and you
Right.
have to. You're like,
Yeah.
oh, hey, we both are doing this test. Let's study together.
Yeah.
Hey, we're working on this project, or we're both like commiserating about this boss together. So you end up just like that just happens
Being in that
naturally.
space, yeah.
And then you become an adult and you just end up doing this like, okay, well, the only adult thing to do is to have like a dinner party, or you wait for
There's so much pressure, and you're like, oh, it's so expensive to buy food for all
Yes,
these people. And I have to
exactly.
make it good, and it has to be clean, and it's just there's so much that goes into it. Where you're like, can you just like come over and like, I'm gonna put on a TV show in the background. We don't even have to watch it. Like, I just want to eat
Yeah.
a bag of chips with you. Just go grab a loaf of garlic bread. I just that's all we
Yeah.
need to really get through this. So no, I totally am with you on that. I think something that's a huge problem though, in the idea of you have to be a villager, is a lot of people, they just so this, how I was saying when I was in school, in my 4th year I decided I want to try a new thing every day. Well, paired with that, I also did what I called being a yes woman. So I said yes to everything, as much, to a reasonable extent, but if my friends wanted to go out and do this thing that I really just wanted to stay home, I wanted to bail so badly. I just wanted to stay home and do nothing. I would say yes. And what I learned is that I never regretted saying yes. It was always a great time.
I remember having that realization at some point, that just that like sometimes staying home can be nice, but it's only nice in comparison if you're out all the time. And some of this is like even just pre-pandemic talking of like, you're at work and you're like throughout the week you've just been commuting and busy, and sometimes you say no to like going out on the Friday night, and that can be like a cozy difference, but you get too comfortable doing that. But you very rarely, if maybe ever, would you or I regret going to see some friends, going out to the movie, going out to grocery shop together.
It's not saying don't have
like,
boundaries. Like have your boundaries, but say yes. Go out and do that thing that makes you a little bit uncomfortable, but go out and say yes. And you know what? It doesn't mean you have to stay and do that thing for 10 hours. Like, go out, go have dinner with them. And when they want to go get drinks afterwards, say, you know what? I'm ready to go call it a night. I want to have some alone time before I go to bed.
Yeah.
Sure, do that.
That's the important part of is like saying yes with strong boundaries of knowing yourself, because
But also recognizing when you're placing in boundaries because of discomfort.
right,
Rather than
protecting yourself.
Yeah, rather than protecting.
Because that can be the downside of if you're someone who wants to say yes to everything, is that could be the kind of attitude that malicious actors take advantage of, whether it's like a boss that will realize like, oh, you'll say yes to everything, or friends who will.
It can also be a cop-out though, right?
Yes.
It can also be like, oh, this makes me uncomfortable. And you know what? I have been one of those people. When I was younger, I really was uncomfortable with being social, which is wild to think about now. But I do have to, like even someone like myself who is very outwardly like social, I do have to push myself still. There still is that little like doorway that I have to push myself through. But it's also
discomfort is growth, right? Like that's where you're growing. Those moments of, I mean, it's true in just a literal sense of like strength, where like, how do you get stronger? You have to do things you can't do and push your body to its limits, and then it grows stronger. And like, that's how you get better socially is like, you have to have a couple awkward encounters. You have to, you don't get good at making a joke with a group of people until you've made a couple bad jokes and had that like uncomfortable feeling of like, oh, that was awkward,
and that was part of what I'm doing. But that's also part of it is going, hey, be a little messy.
And sometimes that you learn too that like, oh, well, what was the worst thing that happened? Like you felt a little uncomfortable and then you got over it. Like that there are worse things.
And the thing is, no one else cares.
Yes, everyone else. Like, people barely registered the awkwardness of that. Like, or that situation. Like, everyone is stuck in their own head and worried about themselves.
Exactly. No one else is paying attention.
Yeah.
We're all concerned that everyone is paying so much attention to us. And the most rude way I can put this is you're not that important.
Yeah. This is, like, a weird thing.
The rudest way I can say that sentence.
Like, our society and our, we're of the same generation, so there's that. Something has poisoned our mentality when it comes to these things. Like, I don't know if it's social media or what, but there's this, it's like everyone feeling like, oh, I can't say that thing or I can't do that thing because everyone's going to notice it or pay attention to it, or like, I don't know. I've heard this shared by like younger people about them saying how people are very afraid to be embarrassing, partly because everyone is holding a camera and is eager to capture your embarrassment. Yeah. So it's not to say that like maybe the flip side of that, like no one's paying attention, is the negative element of that. There are some people who are paying attention, who are looking to catch you, and not just like socially catch you, but like, yeah, no, I agree. It's not it's just like a don't be friends with those people, but I can understand why people have that feeling of like, oh, I can't put myself out there, because they've seen on social media 1,000 videos of someone putting themselves out there and being embarrassed by it. And like, what if I'm that person who gets captured doing that thing and then I go viral in an embarrassing moment? And like, that can be, be paralyzing, right?
I can totally sympathize. I do think it's one of my neurodivergent superpowers. And I don't really get embarrassed that easily. It really takes a lot. To be honest, my version of embarrassment doesn't come from, like, I mean, obviously I get embarrassed about things, but my version of what I get embarrassed by is not someone catching me being flawed, that's just like not part of it.
Right.
So yeah, I totally understand, and I have sympathy for those who are concerned about that. But sometimes I just want to be like, you know what, it's not that important. It's okay. You can kind of be who you are. Sorry,
No, this has been a good tangent, but yeah, I agree that it's a tricky thing that our society, it's not just our generation, it's our whole like society and the generations younger than us and that are working through and figuring out. And I think we will get towards the other side of that, but we're still sort of navigating it. And yeah, it's become so easy to avoid discomfort and put yourself in a bubble of only doing what you want to do.
Right, yeah.
And you don't grow as a person. Like, you never become a better cook if every time you're hungry, you do the easiest thing of like ordering Uber Eats, because like, yeah, that is the easiest thing. but one, you'll spend a ton of money, and two, like you'll never learn to cook, and you'll never like sometimes learning to cook means learning like it's like having a bad meal that like is disappointing because you
Exactly.
didn't have the ingredients or you did something wrong or you over baked something
Yeah.
or you burnt
So I was
something
teaching
like
last night, and I said this exact thing to my student because I really try and teach my students like corrections are a good thing. Being
Yeah.
told you were doing something wrong is a good thing, and I had to look her in the eyes and said, "You will never improve if you don't get a correction. So getting a correction is such a good thing because it's the opportunity to improve." Which means I want to see you do something different than what you were doing before. And having that conversation with my students constantly. Correction is a really good thing.
Well, that's the hard thing is that prevents so many people from starting something is that like you have to be bad at it to begin with. There's a Adventure Time quote from the character Jake the dog says
Right.
something like the first step of I'm not going to get the quote exactly, but he says basically like the first step of being good at something is being bad at something
Right.
or is like
Yeah.
doing it badly, and that's easier for kids to do, right? Like a
be
kid
very
can
vulnerable.
exactly like a kid can learn to ride a bike because they're not as afraid to fall down. But there are so many things that we're not really prevented, but that we stop ourselves from doing as adults because we'll be embarrassed doing it badly,
Right.
and that's tough. And it really isolates us and puts us into like a like you can now you know any hobby that you started doing in high school is all the hobbies that you're stuck with forever or any
Oh,
like
absolutely. Yes.
yeah
I'm like, anything that I started under the age of 5, I'll continue doing because if I have to be, and that's the thing too, is teaching different ages. I realize like what ages are okay with that and what ones aren't, and I have to navigate how to teach those ages.
so it sounds like you were kind of percolating in this whole space about getting together this like-minded group.
Yeah.
So take me back to the beginning of Cool Ant Creatives. Like what was the first workshop or event like, and what happened during that kind of made you realize that you wanted to continue to grow and put time into it?
Right. So at this point, I'm a vendor, and I have gone through years of trying to figure out how am I going to make friends? How am I going to go forward? And I finally felt like I met my people. Yeah. So I
Events?
started being a vendor and selling at markets, and I was really enjoying myself and meeting people in the community, hanging out in the, like doing outdoor markets, hanging out in the park. And I was really enjoying meeting new people this way. And it wasn't until I actually did a market. It was only 6 people, other vendors were at this market. I swear maybe 4 people walked through this market throughout the day. And it had everything to be like the worst market ever. Like it had everything to make everyone mad and angry. We had the best time. We were all just chatting and hanging out. I met some people that I like still support their business to this day. And I remember getting in the car afterwards and my sister's asking, how did it go? And I said, I made 0 sales. And she's like, oh my gosh, I'm so sorry. And I was like, I'm not even mad. I had a great time. Like, and that's kind of where things shifted for me, where I was thinking, you know, markets are such a risk. This is just how they are as an artist. That's why it's so important that we support these artists in any way that we can. We spend all this money, all this time. We go to these markets. You have no idea how much money you're going to make, if you're even going to break even.
Yeah.
It's such a risk every single time, and it's so much work. And at the end of the day, I at least wanted to have a good time. You know, if I'm going to work my 9 to 5 all week, and then on the weekends I'm going to spend doing these markets, at least give me a fun person to be beside so I can chit chat with the neighbor next to me and learn about the art that they're doing and be able to at least take that skill to the next place and be able to learn from the other people around me. So it was at that moment where I decided I want to start running my own markets, but I want to do them where I really lean into the idea that markets are a risk. You never know how you're going to do, no matter how much work the organizer puts in. It's always going to be a risk.
Yeah.
So
Just
I want
a bad weather event on that day. That
bad weather,
makes people,
that'll do it.
Yeah.
Sometimes it's like, you know,
A weird news thing that happens that keeps people like glued to their television or like in a different headspace.
sometimes
like,
you're just not quite prepared for the target demographic. So for myself, for example, at the time I was selling a lot of baby mobiles and craft kits for kids, and I learned very quickly I could not do Mother's Day events because Mother's Day is reserved for, in my mind, from what I understand, Mother's Day is for mothers that are kind of in their, let's say, 50s,
Mm-hmm.
and they're kids who are not having kids yet.
Yeah, their
So
adult children take them to a thing.
yes, it's for adult children and their moms. It is not for people that have babies in
Yeah,
their life.
people's
So,
babies are at home doing Mother's Day, like at home, right?
exactly.
They're not going out that day.
And so sometimes just what you're selling is not what they're buying, and that's okay. Or like your price point is way higher than everybody else's, and you just didn't realize going into this, and there's just all that risk. So I wanted to create events that allowed people just to enjoy themselves. I wanted to choose venues that were going to be more exciting and entertaining.
Mm-hmm.
You know, if let's say, it is a bad market, well, you don't want to be in this white room just
The gymnasium or
Yeah.
something. Yeah.
at least put me in a bar, give me a drink.
Yeah.
And so that's kind of where I started off, was doing these breweries, and then we've done the museum, and we've done all these really fun spaces, or even just outside at the park, which is just really nice to be hanging out outside. So that's kind of where I got my start, was just trying to create spaces where I could at least, if we're not getting a ton of sales that days, at least I can offer you some advice, or I can take your name down. I'm going to advertise you to the next person that asks me, oh, where do you, because people, my friends, know that I support local. So if they want to support local and they go, hey, where do I buy things that are needle felted? I'm going to say, oh, Red Squirrel. Go over to Red Squirrel. Look at us both plugging, right? Do I get bonus points now? I want my brownie points. So I'm always trying to do that kind of next step afterwards.
Yeah.
Because the market itself is so hit and miss. You don't know what's going to happen. So that was kind of my goal, was to just create a safe space to have a good day, a bad day, whatever it's going to be. So that's kind of where the whole thing started. And from there, I started running my own workshops. So I have my background as a dance teacher. I used to teach paint night, and I started selling these DIY kits. And one of the local restaurants that's not around anymore had said, would you come and just teach this? It was during the pandemic when people were doing those like cook your own meal kits.
Right, on like a Zoom call that you could do at home.
It was
sort
like
of
a lot of like restaurants were sending like kits home with you, like a wine tasting or something. They were trying to do events that you could take home. So I said, hey, would you want to do a craft and wine or craft and food kit where people get this craft kit with it? So why don't you just come in and teach it? So I did, and I was like, oh my gosh, like I think about how many markets I do, how much work I put into it, and here I am with unmade work. And so many more people were able to support me all in one go and have a great time while doing it. This makes so much more sense. So I want to start sharing that with all of the other artists that I work with. But they're scared. They've never done something like this before. They don't know where to start. The setup costs are so much. And that's kind of where I started, as I started saying, oh, well, I'll help you. I got this. I'll do this for you. And you know what? Instead of you paying for your advertising, why don't we just split the advertising of mine, and then I'll just advertise both of us at the same time.
Right.
And that's kind of what it grew into, is that a bunch of us, again, doing this resource share. That's kind of what it's all about, is all of these artists doing a resource share so we can all lower our overhead costs, and then also hopefully raise it by all supporting each other.
And it sounds like it gives everyone the opportunity to focus in on what
they're there
enriches
for
them the most too,
Yes.
right? Like you're obviously someone who's like charged up by diving into some of those things, and it sounds like it kind of gives the opportunity for everyone to focus in on what they do best, because not everyone, and this is such a problem with small businesses, I've talked to a lot of them on this podcast, is like forces you to be a jack of all trades, and not everyone wants to focus in on everything, right? Like some people who run a restaurant just want to cook. They don't want to do all the back end stuff.
Good part of it is that I love doing the back end.
Yeah.
I think it's so fun. And so it's really nice because, and I try and remind people this all the time, you're the expert on this. You get to have the final say on how your workshop is run. This is what I think you should do, though. This is what I've learned, because I've gone to everybody else's workshops. I get all of, and they never have to deal with any of the, if someone asks me, like, maybe I should say this in a more positive way. If we get a client that reaches out saying, oh, I can't make it anymore, can I get a refund on this or whatever? I manage that, and the workshop host still gets paid out.
Yeah.
Right? I'm managing that.
That can be
I'm
a very
taking care of
draining,
that.
like I've seen how that's impacted, like my wife sells her art and she loves making it, but the part that's probably the hardest for her to navigate is some of that back and forth.
That customer service.
Yeah. And like, sometimes like, oh, someone wants something to be changed, and like she's happy to do those things, but artists, it becomes this like product, like customer service element of it that doesn't actually match with like the artist side of things,
Exactly.
right? Like,
And it's that idea of I wanted to create art, but now I am manufacturing art,
yes, and it's
right?
like it's the difference between like it's kind of why painters, like who paint can like on canvases and things, painters, they would want to sell their art like through an art dealer. They don't want to sell you a piece of art and then have you call them and be like, can you change the color of this tree actually and like come paint this again for
Exactly.
me? Like
And
they would
it
just
is a lot easier to manage those situations because someone will go, well, I want this and I want that. And I'm sorry, the reason I can't do that is because this person's already paid out.
yeah.
You're
It's
not
nice
dealing
to
with
be
the
the
direct
middle person in that.
and I'm
Yeah.
able to it's a lot easier for me to manage it when there's a bit more of someone's, because I'm sticking up for you.
Yeah.
I'm sitting there reminding these, and I say this with a lot of love for our clients. Like, look, I've never actually had someone fully be mean to me or anything. Like, I've been
But
very
even
lucky
nice
with people we work with.
requests, if you're an artist, it's
They
just
still cost money where the money doesn't exist there,
yeah, exactly. And then you're kind of like working for free, and
Yes. It's
and
one of those
then-
things for me to be able to be sustainable. I have to be able to say no to those things.
and
Like,
you can
we're not a
absorb
huge
people's
business.
requests that are more like taste oriented, that like the artist might get can get like prickly about because it begins to be like, well, no, this was my art, and now people it can just be an
Yes.
uncomfortable.
And it's
thing.
also I do sometimes have to deliver from a client saying, hey, the clients are actually telling me they prefer if you did this rather than that. Is that something you're able to do?
Yeah.
And then able to work that out with them rather than having someone come at them
Yeah.
angrily. And I'm like, no, they didn't actually mean to be angry. They're just feeling angry.
And
But
you can kind
what
of
they're trying to
translate some of that
say
too. You
is-
can take away some of the emotion.
yeah, it's definitely
feedback.
helpful for the workshop hosts in that way. Being able, I think people don't really realize that middleman is something that's actually important. So, anyways, that's kind of how I got my start in Cool Ant Creatives. So something about Cool Ant Creatives too with markets. We kind of just spoke about this, but is that I attract a very specific crowd. So there are some markets that people go to, and there are vendors that this is their career. They're there to sell their things. They need to make certain quotas. And I totally respect that. The people that I really am looking to gather into the community and the people that I definitely serve better. I'm not to say that I discriminate against anyone doing these types of things, but the people that are most suitable vendors for me are the people that are just genuinely excited to meet their community, have their work appreciated, and just have a good time.
Yeah.
Obviously, the goal is that people are selling their things. They want to make sure that they're doing well and they want to feel appreciated in that monetary way. It is important to be able to make sure that it's sustainable for you. But I definitely work best with people who are going to keep that like light atmosphere and just enjoy the vibe that we're all trying to bring there. It's just kind of like the people that I bring together, which I really enjoy. A lot of my regulars are people who are just the kindest, coolest people. And they make great sales. And it's hilarious to me because I look at them and they're just chilling out and relaxing. And I'm like, hey, how's your day going? They're like, great. They just look so calm. And it's those people that I really find I love doing this work for them because they're just there and they're really enjoying the fact that someone else is doing all the coordination for them. And I feel appreciated because I'm able to see them relax and enjoy themselves. The more I see them enjoy themselves, the more I feel like my work is appreciated.
I think there's also something to be said that the people attending these sorts of events, they can get a vibe of the table in the room, and like it's a hard advice for people, but sometimes if you're in a bad mood, like you as a vendor, because the day's not going well, you're not selling well, people can pick up on that. And it doesn't create the sort of energy that you want to engage with.
Exactly.
Which it just is too bad because it does mean that like it's sort of like the people who are doing good do better because of the fact that or like some people just have that attitude where they're just there to like have a good time.
Yeah.
And
So I gave you my whole background on kind of how I got to this point. I wanted to make friends. It was hard to make friends. I found I needed to find my buddy bench. I need to figure out a way to be able to bring together that niche group of people. And I wanted to start creating events that brought together niche groups of people. But of course, I thought I had this career in landscape architecture. So this was always a question. Like, is this a business I'm growing? What am I doing?
Yeah.
And it was kind of just this is what I'm doing while I figure out what I'm doing. And I don't really know if this is going to be a career because it just was such a roller coaster. You have one event and it does amazingly and you're excited and you can do this, you're gonna do it again, and then the next one is a flop and you're like, oh my gosh, I'm the worst, I can't do, I just, people are so mad at me, and then you're like, okay, I'll have to get through the last one and then I'll stop and then do the next one and it's amazing again, and it's and you just don't know what's going to happen. It's just such a roller coaster. So because of that roller coaster and because of that risk, I just wanted to create a safe event for people to go to and be able to have that vulnerability of like, it could be a really great day for me, it could be a horrible day for me, but like, I'm just going to go and I'm going to enjoy myself regardless, and it's going to be an experience that I'm going to enjoy. So that was kind of the goal in starting these. And then it was when I wanted to start helping people grow workshops, because I was like, I see these people who create these incredible pieces that are like $500 a piece for good reason. But people aren't going to markets with $500 in their pocket to spend on a piece of artwork. So I wanted them to get that experience of being honored for their work and people really enjoying their talents. And I want to give people a chance to support them, because I'm sure you've had this experience. You'll go to a space where you see this handmade, especially clothes. That's the one for me. I'll go to a place that has these beautifully made, like handmade, beaded clothes. And I'm like, yeah, there's a reason that costs almost $1,000. Beading takes forever, and this is incredibly done. I can't afford that, unfortunately. And also, I'm so brutal on the clothes I wear. I have a stain on the shirt I'm wearing right now. Like, I can't wear that. Like, I am so brutal that I would never be able to do that, but I want to support that artist so badly. So by having them be able to do a workshop where you're able to talk to them, hear about them, talk about how they got to where they are, and learn and really be able to have that appreciation for the work that they've done and how they've gotten to this point is just so important to me.
And it's tapping into, like, there's a reason why, like, YouTube channels and social media things that are just dedicated to showcasing the expertise of crafting. Like, I think as humans, we get an incredible, like, kick out of seeing someone like dexterously do something that we wouldn't be able to do.
I love talking to people that are passionate about things. Actually, I was probably the worst person when I would attend markets, because I would see what they're making and I would just be like, what are you doing? How did you? And I would talk to them for so long because I'm just so interested. How did you even get into that? And I'm so interested in that question, and then I'd be like, okay, bye. And
Yeah.
like, I'm so sorry you spent so much time with me. I'm just so interested in hearing you talk about what you're interested in.
It's a hard element of markets too, like where we've like a lot of people probably felt this way of like, oh, if you engage with someone too much, there's this like obligation of like, do I need to buy something?
I want to put on the record, there is not that experience. Like, people just like to they like to chat with you, know your limits. Don't stay there for a half hour and block their table from other people seeing it. I mean, I always stand off to the side if I'm not going to buy anything. But no, go talk to the people in your space. Go learn who they are. Go get their card. Follow them on Instagram. You know what? Don't even take their card. Just follow them on Instagram right when you're standing there. We know you have your phone. Take out your phone, follow them on Instagram. And when you're ready to purchase something from them, reach out to them then. But there's nothing wrong. No one is judging you. No one's angry at you for walking away. Don't give them the excuse of, I'll come back later, unless you're actually going to come back later, because we remember that. So just say, thank you so much. I love what you have. I will reach out to you when I have the need for something. And that's all it needs to be. This happens to all of us hundreds of times per market.
Yeah, and people they'll just also appreciate the compliment or the interest or there's something to be said about the fact that, like, at the end of the day, when we talk about these markets, like, we're all focusing in on interested in exploring creativity and art. But to justify everyone's time and effort and all these things, there has to be this like capitalist wrapping on top of it all. And like, people have commented on that like millennials and I guess Gen Z and that we have these issues of like enjoying a hobby without monetizing it.
Yes.
And there's this whole like,
I can get to that one next if you want.
Yeah. What does that mean to you then?
Yes,
like,
of course.
Does that,
Yeah, I mean, just to finish off you asked what made you realize this could grow into something bigger? I'm still not there. I definitely struggle with imposter syndrome the way that the rest of us do. The thing is about this business is that there's really not a lot to compare myself against, which is such a blessing and a curse.
Yeah.
I don't have a ton of competition in that way, but also I don't have any benchmarks.
Yeah, you can't know, like, oh, when I get to this point, it's when you'll be
Yeah.
succeeding, right?
And
Like,
again,
you're paving the road in front of you as you're moving on
yes,
it.
I'm
And,
very
like,
much in, like, under the mercy of where trends are. Like, I have to just kind of make sure I'm always ahead of that curve of the trend. And, like, I feel for some of my workshop hosts who will, like, they're selling out constantly, they're doing amazing, and all of a sudden their next workshop has 0 ticket sales.
Yeah.
And it happens that fast. And it's so, like, you have to constantly keep changing. So that's something I'm always teaching the workshop hosts is, like, you've got to be changing up what you're doing. Make sure you're showing up with a workshop that can be changeable, because you want people to be able to come back to you if they liked learning from you.
Yeah.
You want them to be able to come back to you again, but they're not going to want to do the same thing again. So you have to make sure we're keeping things really moving, and that can be a really difficult part.
Mm-hmm.
But what has really made me go, no, I got to keep doing this. This is what I need to be doing. I'm in the right space, is that the people that come out, whether it's like tens of people or thousands of people, depending on the day we're having, are so grateful.
Mm-hmm.
I have met some of the most genuinely kind-hearted people through this. And I know it sounds like I'm just being positive and saying a nice thing, but honestly, especially the Renaissance fairs and the Renaissance events that I run, actually the dance convention as well, the real niche events that I run, the people that have just been craving this type of interaction, and they're just so genuinely kind and nice about it, which is so lovely at the end of a day when you're like, did I do a good enough job? I don't know. I should have done more of this. I didn't get this done. I was so behind on that. I should have done this. And you're just sitting there in your head going like, oh my gosh, like there's so much more I should have done. And then they come up to you at the end of the day and say, thank you so much. Like, I've been needing this.
Mm-hmm.
And you just realize like, oh yeah, I'm going to keep going. And that's really what's kept me going this whole time, even though my brain's going, you're crazy for thinking this is a job. This is not actually a job. You have to go back into the office, go back to doing this regimented job that is like designated for you. So yeah.
I mean, that can be the issue of sometimes the things that are the most creatively and socially and everything fulfilling, like, doesn't always match up with like what's brings in the most income necessarily, right? And I guess the vice versa is the things that bring in the most income aren't sometimes the most like enriching in your life, and sometimes they are just draining of you. So
and you have to figure out what that balance is, right? Like
exactly.
how much income do I need versus how much life do I need? How much freedom do I need? How much? And that's I think a huge theme in being an adult right now, which is also kind of what that's also kind of what I'm working through and battling with and trying to optimize in the middle of the two. So
yeah. Well, I think, as Canada and Guelph and everything, like, are facing these economic uncertainties, that's something that's interesting for us to reckon with, because people start to pull back on like fun spending, right? Mm-hmm. So they'll maybe pull back on spending at markets and spending at creative workshops and that, but you can only do that so much before you realize like, oh, this is actually negatively impacting my life to be so restricted. Like, if you just, go to work, go home and eat rice and beans, go to work, like sleep, like that's going to make your life worse, and in the long run probably lead to like health consequences and social consequences and like these problems that you kind of start to realize that like there's a price to be paid of just cutting everything out of your life.
Yes.
And there's that balance of like, sometimes you need to spend a little money and go to a workshop and see your friends, and that enriching social experience can give back in ways that will make your life better, including like monetary ways, right? Like building connections at a workshop and having that social connection could mean like one of those people recommends you for a job when they hear about it. Like
funny enough,
it's not a zero-sum game, but it's really hard to kind of
happened. One time one of our workshop hosts ended up hiring one of her clients to paint her house.
Well, I mean, because
you just meet people, right?
And you get this demonstration of their skills in a real life situation that
no, like the workshop host hired the workshop guest,
right? I mean, because
that's what they do for a living.
But like, you learn so much about someone from sitting and seeing how they work and like talking to them for an hour that like that's not surprising, because like that's how people build community and build connections when you're working communally together, right? Like, I think this is why so many friends and people who say so many groups of people have positive experiences camping. If you're the kind of person who likes camping, not everyone likes camping, but camping is often a struggle. Like getting to the campsite, putting up the campsite. You're doing all these weird life chores together,
Right.
learning how to build a fire and like setting up the tent and dealing with the rain. And but like the struggle of all those things that you do together is a bonding experience with
Absolutely.
each other. And like sometimes,
It's also learning about each other.
yeah, that's what I mean. Like
right?
you're
Learning what
learning
they
and you're
need.
doing all these like you're out of each other's kind of like you're out of the comfort zone of each other, and you're all like it's just such an interesting bonding experience that
Absolutely. And
for
part of
people
it too,
who
weirdly enough, I find for camping, a weird bonding experience, part of that is learning when you both just need to stop talking. You know?
yeah
Learning that emotional need of like when like I don't know, my friend and I have done a lot of camping together. And I love how the two of us know we're gonna cook dinner and we're gonna eat dinner and then we don't know each other for the next 2 hours.
yeah
And we love it.
well that's what it's nice when you have those, and you kind of learn this if you like vacation with people and that just like sometimes it's nice to coexist and not just have that desire to like talk the whole time, which makes sense if you're like at a dinner party or
But I
at
think
like a
that's
casual
part
thing,
of
but
having a deeper friendship.
yes, exactly.
It's like if it's a
Is that,
colleague or
like-
someone you're being professional, you're being this, you want to be this person, but deepening that friendship means I get to be flawed and you're going to accept me for that.
Yeah.
And having that trust, and that's kind of what I was craving, is I wanted that next tier down in like to be deeper in that relationship of I want to hang out with someone who I don't need to like make sure that I have a full chilled bottle of wine in the fridge and I
Yeah.
have my social battery at 100%. Like
Exactly.
I want to hang out with someone where I'm like, I'm actually still cleaning. Can you just like hang out while I do that? Like that's what I was looking for, right? I wanted that more. I just want to chill out with this group. I want to be in a bad mood and still be able to like hang out with them. And obviously I'm not going to be mean to them, but I want to not be in like a super outgoing mood and still
Yeah.
have that. Anyway,
Well, that's why people have such like formative and like deep bonding experiences at workplaces and that because it's a place where you have to spend your 9 to 5 together, even if someone's having a bad day or if someone's going through a tragedy. Like it's this forced connection
Yes.
that builds the deepness.
that's a really good point. I like that a lot. Is that it's really the only time in your life that you are being forced to be inconvenienced.
Right. Which is also like
Of
school's
the-
a similar thing, right? Where
Right.
like your friends in high school, you feel so close, and high school feels like such a formative time, even though it's only 4 years. And outside of high school, like 4 years suddenly sounds like feels like nothing.
Yeah.
Where you're like, oh, 4 years goes by, and it's just like, but those 4 years of high school, and partly it's to do like your age and that, but it's so different, and every like couple months everything's changing up and you're constantly moving through different lesson plans and everyone's lives are changing so much so quickly that there's just so much like bonding that happens in that,
Right.
which is it's a problem when those things happen only through school and through work, because those relationships can end all at once. Like you get laid off, you get let go, you lose a job, someone moves away, and suddenly it's like you're just gone, like cut off from that cold turkey, and that
Yeah. Jarring.
it
Yeah.
can
Throws you off your sense of person. And no, and that's actually, I love that thought of, we're talking about people don't put themselves in uncomfortable situations anymore. It's no
Yeah.
longer the status quo that you have to go out and hang out with your friends. It's no longer now you just text them, and now like the status quo is set your boundaries. And again, I'm all about boundaries. But people sometimes use their boundaries as an excuse to not be inconvenienced,
yeah
to get up from that comfy position and go see your friends and go hang out with them. And I love that idea of, you're right, the only place that we still really see that you have to be inconvenienced is work. And now people are working remote, so maybe we're
Yeah.
even going to lose that a little bit. So it's kind of more important than ever.
And it's tricky because at work people are kind of by definition going to be guarded and be putting kind of walls up and wearing a mask because like they're protecting themselves, and that like makes sense to do, which kind of goes back to like why the camping situation is so good, because like you're all there voluntarily. If you really want, you can pack up and go home.
Kind of.
Depends
how hard
depends
you
on
work to
how,
get
if
there.
you like portage together, then like you're kind of stuck to each other.
You go
but
for a swim.
yeah, but you're in this like sort of stressful, hopefully not fully stressful, but like there can be some frictional moments, and it's you're all there for like that guided purpose, and it's not always a fun time, but you're there to like kind of work together and do it, and you're all there voluntarily, and you should all just be friends with each other. So it's like you get to recreate some of that bonding over the struggle that you get with work, and the bonding over the like, hey, we're here for 4 days, a whole week together. We're going to have ups and downs, and those downs can be bonding like towards each other as well.
It's that acceptance.
Yeah, exactly. Of like you know, you see what your friends are like when they're a little bit stressed, and sometimes that makes you closer. But,
Right.
Yeah.
No, for sure, because it makes you feel like you can, again, it's that vulnerability.
Yeah.
And you're able to be that person with them, and it's building trust that, hey, can I not be my best self and you're still going to accept me? And obviously if they don't, then you're traumatized.
Yeah.
But if they do, then you're like, oh my gosh, like I can trust them with this whole other part of me. And that's how you deepen that connection, right?
That's why there's like an innate built-in deepness with like, you know, family, like cousins and siblings and that, because you've gone through good times, bad times when you're kids, and when you're like just have these when your emotions are more raw and at the surface, and people aren't as guarded, and it's hard to recreate that with like adult friendships and that.
Yeah. My nephew just going and being like, hi, do you want to be my friend? And I'm like, I wish. So something that you were wondering from me is, why do I think creating playful, beginner-friendly, creative experience? Whoa. A big part of what I do is creating playful, beginner-friendly, creative experiences for adults. And I think this play has so much to do with this friendship building that we're talking about. It's, you know, being in the same room as someone else, but then also breaking that ice to be able to be flawed in front of them and be accepted for that. So why I think it's so important is that just life is just so serious. You know, you have to work this hard. You have to work multiple jobs if you want to buy a house. And if you want to buy a house, you want to have kids, and you want to do, if you want to get all these things done, you have to be so serious. And you're right that there's people that are scared of, you know, if I'm not always on my best behavior, someone's going to get a picture of it. If I'm not always doing this, I'm going to get canceled. And there's so many restrictions that's keeping us to have to stay so prim and proper.
Yeah.
So something I talk a lot about is the concept of practice. Is that if you continue doing something the way you're doing it, you're practicing that. Right? If you are consistently telling yourself you are a bad person, you are practicing thinking you're a bad person.
Yeah.
You're practicing being a pessimist. If you continuously tell yourself, I'm a great person, even if you don't fully believe it, you're practicing kind self-talk to yourself, and that will manifest itself eventually.
That's what those things don't. If your inner voice is judgmental of yourself, it doesn't matter if you say like, oh, but I'm not judgmental of other people. It's like, yeah, but you're
practicing that.
Exactly that like judgmental muscle, you're giving into it and you're building that up constantly.
Exactly.
It's kind of like, you know, people talk about, and this is sort of a well understood thing now, but you don't really blow off steam. Like that's not a concept that actually works. You're indulging in your anger and you're practicing, like to use your words, like you're practicing your anger and you're practicing your anger outlets. And sometimes maybe that could be useful if your anger outlet is something that's constructive and like works for you and works for your life. But if your anger outlet is like driving erratically and swearing at people in your car, then like you're indulging that.
Yes,
and
you're practicing that being the way you do things. That's how you react every time now.
So that when you're in a situation where like, you know, you're at work and you're a manager and your subordinate like angers you, your go-to is going to be that practice that you've been developing. And then like,
Exactly. So that's kind of the way that I've always considered life in general, is that everything you're doing, you're practicing that thing, even if it doesn't feel, quote, genuine to be saying those words or acting that way. If you practice it, it'll eventually manifest itself.
Yeah.
So the way I see it is that when we go to work, we're stressing about doing everything, the right way. And then you go to your second job for some of us, and you're again stressing about doing everything the right way. And then, you're going home and you're like, oh my gosh, I need to make sure my house is clean in the right way. And then I need to go to bed, but first I need to do like my perfect skincare because when I look in the mirror,
Yeah.
I'm getting older.
And then the whole time you're stressing about your thoughts. Am I thinking the right
Yes, am I
way?
thinking
And
the
then
right
it's
thing? And
like
you're practicing
you
this
can't even
idea.
escape your own judgment inside your own head,
Exactly.
right? Like
You're practicing this routine of like, I have to be doing everything the right way. And when it's not the right way, I'm stressed. And that's that routine of like, this comes first and that comes second. And then it happens, keeps saying, well, I'm stressed. Well, then I'm not, like, if I don't think I'm doing things the right way, then I'm stressed again because then I'm not giving myself the positive self-talk I said I was going to. And it just becomes this like routine of you're just practicing being stressed and not okay.
Yeah.
And so the idea with something that's creative and beginner friendly, I'm not out here looking to make all the next Picassos, right? The idea is that we're bringing people in and showing them you can be flawed in this space. You can try this craft and be horrible at it. And that's okay. It's actually the disclaimer on the website is please keep in mind that these workshops are to figure out if you like this or hate it, which means that you have a chance of going, I actually don't like this craft.
Yeah.
And that's okay though, because you tried it and you got to do something you weren't great at and you practiced being resilient in that moment of going, this isn't for me, but I had fun. I got a little drunk while I did it and I got to be silly and fun with my friends.
Yeah.
And you practice that feeling of it's okay for this to not be my favorite.
And you did it in a safe environment where it's not your career, it's not your job.
And
it's
maybe you
not
tried
like
a new restaurant that maybe you hated the craft, but you loved the restaurant and now you're going to go to the restaurant every time.
Yeah.
And the whole idea is just to push yourself into that little discomfort and practice getting out of the routine of like, I'm an adult, I should be doing everything right.
Yeah.
And get into that space of like, actually, I'm an adult, and if I want to do something wrong, I'm going to do it wrong. Leave me alone.
And we kind of touched on this before,
Yeah.
but I think like researchers have shown that part of the reason why people feel like as they get older, time is going by quicker is because they're having less unique experiences. And those like unique experiences are what stands out
The
in your brain.
milestones.
Exactly. Which
Yeah.
is partially why like, the years of like when you're like 10 to 18, like it's only 8 years, but it feels like an eternity because it's full of your first time doing things,
Right.
like your unique experiences. And it's hard to recreate that as an adult. And that's why, like, if you want to move from like acquaintances to friends or move from like dating to like, maybe more substantial partner, you kind of have to do those bonding experiences together, which is like, I guess, a promotion for your events of like, these events aren't just, I mean, in some ways they are just like fun, fluffy things to do, but they are also like real bonding things that you'll remember having that bonding experience with your friends. And even if it's just like, oh, you did a craft that you never did before, but you've never done that craft before, and you're going to remember that. It's going to forge like new pathways in your brain, and you're going
And
to
just
be
new
doing
ways
it
to
with
think about the world,
Exactly.
right? This is, again, like, if you do this craft and it's your gateway to being like, oh my gosh, I'm now going to be a stained glass artist.
Yeah.
Okay, you go take that 2-week whatever course and you learn to be a stained glass artist. That's fine. What we're doing here at Client Creatives is just trying to get people to come in and be messy. Like, be messy, try something out, and don't put so much pressure on it. Don't put so much pressure on yourself to like, I have to get every single like second out of this. I have to become the best at this afterwards. Like, it's just, the idea is like you're supporting an artist who is incredibly talented and probably isn't getting the economic, they're not financially stable in their art, unfortunately, most likely. And so you're able to support that local art. You are able to support that local venue because we only work at venues that we think are supportive to the community. And you were able to deepen some connections with other people. You may have met a new person, or you now have a new, honestly, if you were not good at that craft, I hope you have a new appreciation for the people that do this as a full-time artist. Like, you're like, wow, it's so cool how they did this. And now, the next time I'm in a space where like I need to do a problem solving situation, I'm like, well, actually, I worked with something very similar before. And, let's say I did needle felting, and, now I'm in this situation where we need to attach this to this. And you know what? This is how needle felting works. I wonder if it would work in this situation.
Yeah. And that kind of appreciation of like learning crafts at its most basic level is just learning a whole bunch of like mechanical skills,
Yeah,
like mechanical and
problem-solving things, yeah.
material skills. Like here are different materials, here are different ways of manipulating them. And like here's tools, and like using those tools, and those applications will enrich like every part of your life, even if it's just
and
like,
again, it's practicing. Even that is practicing
Exactly.
that idea of going, okay, this didn't work, how am I going, like, is that creative problem solving, right? Like, how am I going to think of a new way to do the same thing? Okay, well, I did it like this before, and it's activating that part of your brain, kind of thing. And you know what, that's another thing that I love to talk about is the definition of productivity. Is that people seem to think that to be productive, the whole goal in life is to be productive. You always have to be productive. And if you're not productive, then you have to be relaxing. And it's like, anyways, so my thought behind that whole thing is, when did productivity become all about how much work did you get done? How much of your 9 to 5 did you get done in a certain amount of time? This was one of my university thesis decisions. I decided I was going to stop seeing productivity as school. I was going to start seeing productivity as me. So did I get outside that day? Well, that was being productive. I got outside and I got some air. Well, did I exercise a day? Well, I'll go do that. That was productive. Did I talk to a friend today? Well, that was productive. That's going to be part of it. And
like seeing yourself as the multifaceted being that you are, that, just as you need like nutrients, you need social things. Like, I think a lot of people can relate to like playing like The Sims growing up, and you're like, oh, those 8 little health bar things, right? Like, yeah, like you can be giving your sim everything it needs, but if it never talks to a friend, that bar drops to nothing, and then it cries. And like,
you know what, Sims, we should all be playing Sims.
Yeah.
Everyone get your computers out. It's a huge part of productivity. Well, exactly. And so that's kind of something that I've always tried to like lean on, is that perspective of how did the world become this, and how do we stray from that, because we're
and just remembering that the world isn't set up how it is necessarily to make it so that we all have fulfilling, thriving lives. Like, you can have a life that's fulfilling and thriving, but sometimes you have to do it by forging a path through and around
with creative problem solving.
Yeah, and like if you only the quote unquote like productivity of it all, you might just find yourself enriching other people. Like you might spend your life enriching shareholders who will, give you your
you gotta check in with
rewards,
yourself.
but you're not. Like, is it going to really be?
And you have to admit when this is actually not what I wanted. This is not the productivity that I wanted. This is not what I wanted for my life. I need to find productivity for myself somewhere else, kind of thing.
Yeah.
But yeah, so that's kind of interesting to me. So yes, this is where the cool ant energy kind of comes into the cool ant thing. So there's actually a really big world behind the name. The simplest term is that I'm obviously a cool ant, self-proclaimed. My niece and nephew don't always agree. I guess I said that on the interview the other day, and my niece listened to it and she goes, "You said Legos. It's just Lego." I was like, oh my gosh, I'm so sorry. So I'm going to correct myself this time. Yeah, the whole idea of being the cool ant is understanding that our generation, we're not in a financial situation to be having kids, a lot of us, or we just don't want to. But there's a huge generational shift right now of people either just not having kids or not feeling they can have kids. And I think that plays a huge part into our social lives being different.
Yeah.
That was kind of the first place that all this started, was when I first asked my parents, I left university and I move out to this town and I go, where did you guys make friends? Like, what am I doing wrong here? Like, I joined the soccer team and everyone's looking at me like I'm crazy when I want to chat. And they're like, we're here to play soccer, not chat with this weirdo. I was like, I'm joining the soccer team. I'm trying to make friends with people at work. Like, What did you guys do? I was going and sitting at coffee shops by myself with interesting books, hoping someone would ask me about the book. Like, I was doing everything I could. And my parents were like, well, I guess we had kids and we became friends with their parents.
Yeah.
And I was like, well, that's not going to happen at 22 and I'm single and I'm making 16 an hour. So that's not going to
But that ends up
happen.
being like the real, like, yeah, like when you talk about they would make their friends and it was just, well, you kind of had to make friends because, you know, you'd have kids and then you'd meet your kids would make friends or they'd make friends with the neighbor kids and you'd end up just like, oh, our kids are hanging out. Like, I guess we have to talk to each other. And some of those will turn into real friendships.
Yeah.
And it's a friendship that's, again, forged by this, like, oh, hey, you're trying to raise your kid too? Like,
Right.
me too. Like, and we got to talk through that and
Yeah.
figure that out. And that's like,
Like, I mean, I
problem
pick up my
solving,
niece
right?
and nephew from school twice a week. I have become friends with all of the other parents at pickup.
Mm-hmm.
And it's not because I've put any effort into these friendships. It's just because we're always just standing there in the cold and
Yeah.
it's awkward to not say hi. And, you know, they're great people. I'm glad I've met them. But it just wasn't very purposeful, right?
it's also probably good advice that, like, you know, a lot of people have figured out that a good way of making friends is if you both have a pet and you're both
Yes.
sitting at the, like,
The dog bark.
Yeah.
I know I'm always so jealous, but I can't afford a dog either.
so I know I've benefited, like, we have a friend that we go over to Exhibition Park down the street
Right,
with
yeah.
often. And there's something about meeting people in that dog friendly sort of social circle where people just start talking to each other and it's,
Yeah.
hi, I'm so-and-so.
Well,
and
so,
like,
yeah, that's
I've
what I'm
benefited
going
from
with.
that just from having like being there with a friend who has a dog and then suddenly
Because
you're
you
just
need
chat
that
with people.
opening, right? And so
Yes.
that's the idea of it's so much easier to make friends when you know we're all looking for the same thing. We're all in one
Yeah.
space. We're all just in there watching our dogs run around.
This is why, like,
I know you want me to say hi to you or what's going on because we're both kind of just awkwardly sitting here and one of us needs to say it because we're very close together.
this is why, like, it's so hard to recreate and to
Mm-hmm.
actually do. But like, music festivals are like a magical place because
Yes.
it's like it's kind of like combining all the things we're talking about, where
Mm-hmm.
it's like camping, but also it's like an entire village that's just sprung out from the ground, and also you're all united by this shared interest in these like bands, and they also have workshops and like you
Yeah.
know, like Hillside is like a microcosm of if like all of Guelph was going to a workshop together to learn, and that's why they're such like magical places because everyone is just in a mood to like,
so-
oh, hey, you're here and you're
Yeah.
next to me, like
That's
this is who I am.
that's exactly the
And-
core what I'm trying to do with, but expand it into
Mm-hmm.
more things because that's exactly what you're talking about is exactly what I'm trying
That's why
to
people
pick
end
up
up
on.
like they'll leave a music festival and then they'll be like, how do I recreate that? How do I go
Yes.
back to that? How do I like?
Because your people are all in one space and
Yeah.
you know that they're open to it. It's not like I remember when I was living in Picton, I met like the first time I saw someone who was like my age and she was my pharmacist or like I guess a pharmacist assistant or whoever you would be at that age working at the pharmacy. And I remember texting my sister being like, how do I ask this girl if she wants to hang out without hitting on her? I don't know how to like make this clear that I just want to be friends with, but she's the pharmacist. Like, do you just go up and say, hey, what time do you get off work? Like, what do you do? Like, how do you manage that?
Yeah.
So when you're at a music festival and you're like, all you have to do is turn and say, hey, do you like this band? Hey, how did you hear about this? You have those questions. So this was like a weird, I sometimes do little nods to this. So this is kind of a weird, like behind the scenes is, so when I'm sitting there, I live in Picton, I'm going, what do I wish existed? And I came up with like my perfect scenario. And it was if there was a table, and of course I'm also thinking from a landscape architecture perspective. So I'm also thinking like financing, like what would be the perfect scenario that is doable?
Mhm.
And I would always think, I wish there was just a cafe or a place where I could go get a drink, which I used to frequent a lot of the cafes and like local bars just with my book because that was the only way I could get out in public.
Yeah.
And I just thought if there was like a cafe that had like a big harvest table that was very clearly a shareable table, but on the table they had puzzles that were like partially done or not partially done. And the goal is you can just sit down and do the puzzle because it's a thing that you can do silently as an introvert. You don't have to make eye contact with anyone. You don't have to talk to anyone. You can be very obviously, I'm just sitting here doing this.
Yeah.
Or you can go, hey, can you pass me that piece over there? And maybe start a conversation that way. And it gives you that conversation piece and also knowing, oh, had you come here often, or what colors are you working on right now with that puzzle? And that was my ideal situation, was just, I think it'd be easy to meet general people without having to pay to use the space, and I could come back as frequently as I wanted to, and I could sit here and I could have a drink and I could read my book. I don't even have to do the puzzle. But like, I could sit at this space, and it's basically an adult buddy bench of going, I want someone to come hang out with me. I want someone to come sit with me. The space is available for them. I want to play. I want someone to come play with me. So that was always kind of my thought of what I'd want. And it's so funny that you're talking about the music festival in this way, because that's exactly how I feel at the Renaissance Fair. It is a group of people who have figured it out.
That's like, and that has that other, like, the added element of, hey, there's like a dash of like silly play that's added to it, because like,
that's why
hey,
they're actually
like,
the perfect
and that's why I think, you know, people are so into Renaissance fairs and like anime cons and like the sci-fi conventions. Like, these things are so big because it's this shared experience, and in some ways that's like what Halloween is too, right?
And it's so judgment free, and people show up as they are. And
like, I know I love Halloween, and that's partially why, is because it gives this added. It's like a night where there's this extra element of like, everyone just gets to be a little bit like, you're playing into this whimsy of spookiness, and everyone's in costume, and hopefully they've like homemade their costume. So it gives you something to talk
you
about.
You know, they sat on the floor and they put every sequin on
that's
there.
What and it's like,
gun.
and it's stupid and it's silly, but like, it's also, it makes sense that as a generation, a lot of us are engaging in those sorts of things more. Maybe as a substitute, or just because we still have this longing to connect, but we don't have kids and we don't have these like built-in things that bring people together.
So that's what I was going for, is that, you know, the cool aunt is definitely, in my mind, me, but it's the idea of like, you don't necessarily have kids, but because of that, you still stayed quite youthful. Is the idea of the cool aunt to me, is that aunt that doesn't have kids, but she was able to live her life the way she really wanted to live it. And I think that's just really cool.
It's really funny how that stereotype it's so prevalent, and probably for a reason, that like, I can think of a cool aunt that I had that she has kids now, but before my cousins were born, I was like the youngest in the family, and I remember me and my other cousins were at a hunting cottage together or something.
Wow.
And I didn't participate in hunting. It's basically just like a cottage in the woods. But this cool aunt, I must have been like 5, if that, and she led us all in like, we gathered leaves and then did like arts with the leaves or something. And like,
she is my person.
Yeah, like when I think back to that, it's like, oh, like, it's because there's a cool adult who is sharing some of that cool adult energy of like, hey, they have interests and they're into art and they have these skills.
Well, also you have all this, I mean, from an aunt, you have all this energy.
Yeah, that's what I mean.
Like, I can put all of my energy into you right now, and then I get to go and I get to sleep in tomorrow, and your parents don't. Yes,
exactly. And they have that because they don't have kids yet. So yeah, I can understand that.
Yeah. So the thing is that as an adult that doesn't have kids, you know, you get that craving of play. You know, that thing of like, when it's Christmas or whatever gift giving you're doing for the children in your life. And I always just want to get them like the coolest toy. I know they don't need more toys, but I want to play with it. Yeah. You know, you're secretly buying it for yourself. So like, do we just crave that idea of play? But as an adult, it's not really as available to us. So like, whether it be sitting down and playing with their Lego, not Legos, or playing dress up with them, or like trying the big slide at Riverside Park. Have you done that slide? An incredible time. Incredible time. If you go in the winter though, you're gonna go quite fast and go shooting out the bottom. So be prepared for that. But the big slide at Riverside Park, I had to like wait until there was like no kids there, and I was like, I'm gonna go try it. And I just, you know, you want to do those things, but it's just like, I would never do that if there were other kids there. Could you imagine me standing in line to go down the big slide? Very fun though. But it's whenever you do those things, like, I mean, I'm very grateful that I get to see my niece and nephew twice a week, and I will have to have a conversation with myself on the car ride over, going, you're not going to do any work while you're there. You are going to use this as, and they're not allowed a lot of screen time. So we're not going to watch TV. We're not going to be on my phone. We're going to go and do intentional play.
Yeah.
We're going to go play things together. We're going to play outside and play soccer. We're going to go do I brought craft stuff. We're going to do a craft, and we're going to play with the Lego after. Sorry. That's such a bad. The Lego afterwards. And yeah, it's a great reminder of what it is like to live a life where you're intentionally seeking new activities and actually how much it can benefit your mental health. Like, I always thought that to relax my brain, I had to sit and watch TV. I thought that's what relaxing would be to me. Turns out relaxing to me is actually just enjoying building something that is going to get knocked over in 4 seconds. Like, that's important. So that's kind of why this is so important to me, and why I think it's really important to the community for that mental health, is that I think we all need more opportunities to play, even if there's no children in your life. So that's kind of where the Cool Aunt and Funkles name comes from.
It's interesting that you're kind of recreating something that would have been such a everyday element of our lives before we kind of got into this, like, nuclear family, separated little units living isolated from each other. Because in a more communal style living, like whether you want to talk about, you know, humans living prehistorically in like big clans together, or even just like 100 years ago or so, where people lived in more multi-generational households and more like connected neighborhood, there would be so many more times where you would be able to have these like the aunt sort of relationships. But like, if you think of that kind of situation where we would have naturally just been hanging out with like your cousins of various ages, many of which would be younger than you, and then you'd want to be like mentoring them in some skills, and then at the same time you'd be like, okay, enough kids, I want to go, and then you would go talk to your like older aunts and uncles, and it wouldn't even just be like, I say aunts and uncles, but it literally would have just been like a community of people that you would have been varying degrees of half related to distantly related to like second cousins, third cousins. And there would have been just that degradation of like a gradient of hanging out with people and those sort of experiences that we just don't get anymore, because now we're isolated of like, there's a house over there and there's the kids in that house, and people have all kinds of feelings of like that stranger danger. And like, I mean, then that's a good, because it is a sort of scary world, and there's those.
Yeah. Unfortunately, there's necessary evils, but yeah.
Yeah. But like, it makes sense that those sorts of experiences only get to happen in like these controlled environments of like a summer camp where like, the camp counselors. And I think there's a reason why all these, whether it's like the cool aunt or the camp counselor or the teacher or the coach, like these end up being such formative, influential people on people's lives. And you're kind of recreating that, you know, obviously the age difference, like they could be the exact same age, the teacher could be younger, like it doesn't matter, but you're creating that safe environment of structured play and mentorship that doesn't get to happen very much.
Yeah,
if ever,
the goal
really
is to create experiences that people can take in the way they need it, right? And the idea is to be very symbiotic in the way that we are supporting. You know, we're supporting the artist, we're supporting the third space, we're supporting the person who's doing it, and it's just the whole idea is that we're all supposed to be able to find what we need out of the experience,
right? And
also to remind people to be open-minded to the fact that it doesn't always have to be perfect. It doesn't always have to. It's
not a technical school where you're learning to like, you know, how to wire up a circuit board.
But it also doesn't
where
have to like scratch that exact itch, right?
Yeah.
Sometimes, you know, you might have an itch that needs to be scratched, and so you try something and it's not right. Okay, try something else. And the idea is that we're allowed to kind of, I guess what I'm saying is that I think people put so much pressure on themselves. You know, we have all these different workshops, so they have to pick the exact one they're going to like the most because it's going to be their only chance to do this workshop. And it's like, whoa. Like, you know, you went and you tried this one out, and, you know, I've actually never had someone tell me they didn't like the workshop, but I'm sure there's some people that are like, you know what? I probably did that once and I probably won't do it again. You know, there's a lot of times that I'm sure that does happen. And fortunately, we've had a very awesome experience with a lot of our clients. But the whole goal is to give yourself that flexibility and give yourself a bit more of that whimsy. Give yourself a little bit more grace and forgiveness and permissions and all of those things that we don't give to ourselves as adults. Whereas as kids, you're like, yeah, I have the permission to jump off the house. Watch this. Whereas an adult, you're like, permission to, wear a shirt without ironing it first? That's crazy. And it's like, well, I mean, look, like, just go get your groceries and go home. It's not a big deal.
So it sounds like a lot of your workshops are focused on, like, the creative crafting side of things. I'm curious, because you said that you are or were a dance teacher as well.
Yeah,
you did dance?
I still do, yeah.
Yeah, like, could you see yourself doing, and maybe you do, workshops that are more, I guess, like skill-based or like activity-based things?
Yes.
Or...
So here's my thing. I have raging ADHD, and I have really tried to force myself into not doing a million things at once, even though I want to so badly.
That can be a challenging thing of like, there's real benefit of like keeping something to at least have some kind of focus to it and not just be like, oh, what I could do this, I could do that.
So the goal is to keep growing. Yeah. And there are some exciting things coming in the future in place that will kind of make more sense to all of this eventually. It's a little cliffhanger there. But the goal right now is to try and keep things as standardized as possible as I'm trying to work out. So one of my biggest stressors is accessibility. I want to make sure that it's financially accessible without getting rid of the value, because at some point I can make it cheaper and cheaper, but the value of the actual event is going to be so low at that point that it's like, is it even worth that cheaper price at that point? So that's where I really struggle, because I want to make sure that everyone is getting what they need for a reasonable, because the reality of it is that we do need financial compensation to keep things sustainable. That's just how it works, unfortunately. It would be great if we could all work for trades. That would be fun.
It's okay. One day we'll have a Star Trek utopia where we'll have universal basic income and everyone can just spend their days doing what they want, but that's not this day.
The goal, right? Exactly. So it's one of those things that's the kind of the biggest stressors is how do we keep things. So at this point, that's really what I'm focusing on is what can I do in this amount, and we're trying to keep things standardized in pricing. But we are kind of slowly growing and opening up new opportunities. So there are things that I'd love to bring in that might be, behind the basics of podcasting. And there's different things that maybe people want more relaxed style beginner courses and things where, they might not actually, they're not looking to become a podcaster.
Yeah.
They just want to talk to you and hear about you and kind of go, oh, that's really interesting. I didn't know the ins and out of podcasting. And now I've had this experience and I tried it. And that was really cool. And I'm going to tell someone else that I did that, but I don't actually care to do it. Yeah. Right. And so there are ideas in the future that are definitely coming for a lot more. But at this point, I'm trying to kind of keep things a little bit more tight. So what we're doing right now actually is that Quill Creatives is an umbrella business. And I kind of have to do that for my own brain. I need to be able to like switch from all sorts of different types of things that I do to be able to keep myself motivated. So Quill Creatives itself, that kind of like main part of it is a space to create more social opportunities for adults, is to create more playful opportunities for the community. And it's to try and put local resources on a pedestal. That's what I'm trying to do, is create a platform that shows people of what they have available to themselves if they choose to prioritize it. That's the kind of the whole message of the whole umbrella. So Quill Creatives itself is the workshops as well as any markets that we might run. So that's more of something that we're talking more about, the artists and the creativity is Quill Creatives itself. Then we have a little arm over here that is Cool Aunt Junior. So that's something that's our summer camps. That's the family-friendly things, because just because I'm a cool aunt doesn't mean that no one else has kids. And I mean, they can be a cool aunt too, but we want to make sure there's some family-friendly stuff as well. So that's kind of our summer camps. We did some workshops this year, and actually have something really exciting this year. I'm bringing a royal tea party to that side of things. So that's coming up in June, hopefully. Then another arm is our Renaissance fairs. So that's Fairy and Iron Renaissance fairs. It's funny because I try and do so many things that I'm trying to create for the first time Renaissance fairs are like that complete opposite, where it's been around for like literally so long, like literally since the Renaissance, I assume.
Yeah,
But
it feels like as soon as we were like one
it's a
generation
historical
past the
event.
Renaissance, people started being like, "Well, what if we just pretended like
If
we
it was
could?"
still then, what if it's still the Renaissance?
So tell me about that. Sorry, what's the name of the?
It's called Fairy and Iron Renaissance Fair.
Okay, and when is it?
Yeah, so we don't have our 2026 dates out yet. I can give you a sneak peek at the first date that I do have booked. It's at Cox Creek in Guelph. Incredible winery, incredible people. Highly recommend going there anytime. Even though I'm always like, I want to gatekeep this place because I love how serene it is. But here it is. They're amazing. They deserve the shout out. We'll be there July 11th and 12th for our evening Renaissance fair. So we usually do 3 until 9, but I'll be putting out the final information on that soon. If you check out our Instagram page, Fairy and Iron Renaissance Fair.
It definitely, I think it sounds so familiar to me. I didn't go to it last year, but I think I had like mutual people I knew who were going to it, or vendors and things like that.
Yeah, that's been really cool. We actually, these are the people that figured it out. Like people at Renaissance fairs are everything that I'm looking to create for every other interest, and other niche interest. The idea behind that is actually hilarious because there was no reinventing the wheel. This was invented. People have been doing this. It brings together this niche group of people that are just so happy to meet each other. It's funny because it's a group of generally introverted people that find a space where something that I say a lot in this business is being introverted is not being antisocial.
Right.
And so being introverted is just socializing in a different way than someone who's extroverted would socialize. You're less likely to just want to run up to a random person. You're less likely to make a ton of eye contact. You're less likely, and there's all these different reasons that's going to make you...
Some of it's just how people's social batteries are recharged, and it's not that they don't need that social time. It just means like maybe they're exhausted after the day at the Renaissance Fair versus other people who are like, they would do it for 10 more days in a row if they could. But
it's like the way that they're going to interact with you has a lot to do with, that social battery. And is it being charged or is it being decreased, and where are they at? And just, again, meeting people where they are is so important.
Introverts aren't hermits. They're just maybe like...
They don't not want to talk to you or hang out with you. They just want to like experience this in a different way than you want to experience it. They're not looking to tell everybody their life story. They're probably more likely just willing to want to experience this in their own way. I'm only introverted at home. I'm not introverted in public, so it's hard for me to speak on behalf of all introverts. Yeah, that's something that I just found really cool at the Renaissance Fair, which is something I'm trying to, and the same thing with music festivals, where I'm trying to recreate these experiences where you're with your people and you're meeting your people and you're forming community, and everyone starts to get to know each other because they're all coming to the same events all the time. And Fairy and Iron has turned into this really cool thing where we're getting a very loyal following, because I actually hired a fantasy author this year because it's more of a fantasy based fair. So I hired a fantasy author, and she's been writing a story that is the subtext behind the Renaissance fairs and events that we host. So last year was our first year doing it, and so there was a story that's on our Instagram page, and it kind of walks you through the world of Shadowmere and King Oberon and his triumphs and these 3 relics. And every Renaissance fair we would have the final scene acted out, and then the next story would start, and then the final scene was acted out the second one last year, and the third story started, and then we actually just had our first fantasy ball that we hosted in December. On December 28th we just had our first one, which was so much fun and so exciting. And so then the story, the finale of the year ended there.
It's just so cool because it's like you're taking that, like, all kids have the same instinct of like the creative play and making up stories, but kids aren't. I mean, in some ways, like, it's no different than what you're doing than that's what wrestling is. Like, professional wrestling is a whole bunch of people who are like, oh, there's a storyline and there's good guys and bad guys, and you have to go to the pay-per-view event to see the like big conclusion to everything that's been happening. Like, you're just doing the like fantasy nerd version of that, right?
I've never made that connection. It's just like that. Well, and exactly, it's that idea of like make this a bit more magical. And you know what? I will say, with kids, okay, here's my best example. So the Renaissance Fair, actually we tend to sell we barely any kids tickets. It's always
Mm-hmm.
all adults. So I was like, well, I want to do face painting, but I don't necessarily need to hire a face painter if they're going to have like 10 kids. That's just not fair to them. So I'm going to do the face painting.
Mm-hmm.
So I was doing face painting for these kids. And, I have a background in oil painting, but I don't have a background in face painting. So, I'm still painting well enough. But, these kids are moving. Like, it's a very different type of canvas. So I'm trying to do these kids face painting. And there's sometimes you're like, ooh, I did not do my best job on that. This kid's gonna be really disappointed when they look in the mirror and you show them the mirror and they're like, I love it. And they just think it's the most amazing thing that's ever been happening to them. And you're just like, oh, okay. Because the thing is that kids are just excited with what they're given and they can make the magic themselves.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, once we're adults, we have gone through it a little bit more and it's hard
care a
for
little
us
bit
to
more
make.
about how they're going to look on their Instagram selfie
They're
afterwards.
Like, this picture, this sucks. Why did you
Yeah.
do this to me? So as we get older, it's harder for us to create that own magic for ourselves. So it's important, I think, to be able to create those experiences and help push that magic at ourselves and be able to say, oh, here's something magical for you to get into. So that's kind of the goal with those Renaissance fairs. And I love that crowd. Like the crowd we get for that are so... The fact that, we'll have thousands of people there and people will come and somehow find me, which I'm like, wow, that was cool. They knew that it was me behind the scenes and pulling all the strings. I must not be that quiet. I am running around and yelling, yeah, get this done. And they'll come up to me at the end of it. Multiple people will seek me out after this hugely overstimulating day. And they'll seek me out just to thank me and tell me what they loved about the event. Ask me when the next event is. And it's so rewarding. And it is what keeps me going because, again, then we'll have an event that are like, oh, man, this financially wasn't the best situation. But people were so happy we did it. I'm willing to give it a second try to make it bigger and better next time. So it is more sustainable.
That can probably be the bittersweet thing of doing events, too, is like you put so much time and energy and effort. It's kind of like Christmas, right? Like there's all this build up to it. And then suddenly it's the day after and you're like, oh, it's done.
Oh my gosh, yes.
But,
I go through a little bit of a depression.
Yeah, but you can't help but just because the event is in the past, you still created a lot of connection and stuff that will ripple through in the future. But
and people posting their photos afterwards, just being happy they did that, or all the things that they bought, or even speaking to our vendors afterwards, be like, oh my gosh, I met this amazing person. I saw this person making this and I made this connection with them. And now, or we get a lot of my regulars now will be like, oh, I told my friend to come to your market, so now she's coming as well. And it's just great to see kind of those connections that are building. And there is so much more that's happening, but that is something that as the event coordinator myself, especially because 9 times out of 10 I'm coordinating these events alone. And I have a little bit of contract help here and there, but I'm doing a lot of it to 100% of it myself. And so there is a lot of it where I'm like, there's so much work that's going on and it's so overwhelming and you're really like I don't know, you just always wish that you did more. And so to have someone say no, what you did was enough, it just feels so relaxing and so good because you're like, I had this whole time I was so stressed out, I had no one else to depend on and I thought I was gonna do a horrible job, and by this one person seeking me out and saying no, you're enough, it just feels really nice when you're like, oh my gosh, how did I make it through this? So it is really rewarding and definitely worth all of the stress I go through, but it's definitely worth
hard
it
when you're the orchestrator too, because it means, like you said about oh, it could have been more. You had to go through. It's probably why it's tough for some directors to watch their own movies,
right,
because they're aware of every scene and they had plans for it to be bigger, for us to more to happen, and then everything just ends up being what they were able to do.
What you were able to do, yes.
But that's not the experience that the actual viewer or
so
attendee have. They have their event and it is what it is, and they don't see the oh, there was going to be a flame throwing dragon over there, and
the dragon didn't show up. The dragon was sick or something. I don't know. Well, so that's something I have to remind myself all the time. This is 6 months for me. This is one day this is maybe 2 hours for this person. This was I will be planning these Renaissance fairs. I'm planning yearly. It's the biggest event for sure. And so the entire year I'm planning these big events. And I have to remind myself this is only 2 hours for that person. It's okay.
It's like a bigger version of like, but even when it comes to the markets, like you have these people, and it could be like their 10,000 hours of their craft distilled onto like something that they've spent their whole life putting together, and their artwork on the table. And for an attendee of that fair, it could just be 5 seconds and them walking by and going, "Oh, that's pretty."
Nice.
Like,
yeah. They might buy it. They might hang it up on their tree, and then they're just like, okay, it was up on my tree. Like, the Christmas tree. I'm like, oh, it's up on my tree for like 3 days.
exactly, right? Like, it's
You're
just...
like, oh, that was so much work.
It's like when you go to a museum, like sometimes you just walk by something and you're like,
Cool.
Cool painting, like...
Yeah.
But, that could have been months of, like, the most anguishing work for the artist.
And that artist was like, man, that one white speck is in the wrong spot. Like,
yeah, exactly.
That's how intense, or like the color is just like one tone off. And it's just like, you have to remind yourself of that, like, this is a lot for me. It's one day for everybody else. And I have to recognize that the world is going to keep spinning. And that's something I do have to remind myself, because this is a very high stress job.
Mm-hmm.
And a lot of people are depending on you. And unfortunately, the reality of life is you're going to disappoint people sometimes. Hopefully you're going to be...
And sometimes you'll...
encouraging people more than disappointing them.
More from the people who have a disappointing time, right? It's like why reviews are tricky to...
Yeah.
To
Thankfully, I've been quite lucky.
Like...
I do think that people that I work with have been very good at expressing kindness to me.
Yeah.
To be fair, also when I send out a survey, at the end of it, I always say, any extra comments, questions, but please keep in mind that I'm sensitive. So you know what? That's my hot take.
Something about the distance on the keyboard just gets people like the ability to be.
Please don't be mean to me.
Yeah.
Recognize that I understand that, maybe you wanted more out of this event and you didn't get what you wanted out of the event, but also recognize, like, I put so much time and effort into what you did get, and there's only a certain amount I can do.
That's like a usage case of like ethical usage of AI to like, hey, I'm not going to read all this feedback, but if I copy it and paste it in a ChatGPT and I tell ChatGPT like, hey, tell me the constructive feedback from this in a nice way, and like, you don't have to tell me the harsh, like... Yeah,
can you just tell me what I actually need to know?
Exactly.
Give me a to-do list. Yeah, so anyway, so that's the Renaissance Fair, and then we also have another arm that's called Encore Dance Convention. So that's one that is so fun, and honestly, something that I really would love to see more people get into, because... So again, I don't know how much is common knowledge with the dance world, but I grew up as a competitive dancer, and in the way that hockey will have... you are this competitive hockey doing all of these big teams and stuff like that. And, you can keep going up higher, or you can start to plateau as you get older, or you can start going into easy. There's so many different levels, even as you get into an adult. Like, I know that my dad, who is now 65, who gets so mad at me for saying his age, he's 25 years old. Now even as my dad has gotten older, he was playing on the seniors hockey team and the hockey team of all of like my friends I went to high school with. Like, he was playing on multiple teams because he wanted the challenge of with youngers, but he also wanted to have fun with buddies his own age. And there's so many opportunities, and that was in a small town.
That reminds me, and I don't mean to go on a tangent, but there was a TikTok I saw recently where someone was lamenting the fact that we don't let teenagers play sports for fun. Where you're young and you can play sports for fun, you're older and you can play sports for fun, but high school has to be serious. Like, you can't play on the high school basketball team for fun, and there's not really there's not really a space for like 17-year-olds who just want to have fun to play. Like, we have that in university. You get that again, or you get like intramurals and stuff.
This is the idea of like, there's a difference between being serious. There's a difference between being recreational, being serious, and being competitive.
Yes.
Right? And it's one of those things where, or I guess like competitive or pro level, I guess is something that's a better way to put it, is like, this was me, actually, I had a very similar experience now I think about it. I used to play piano, and I was naturally good at piano. So my teachers were always pushing me to do all these exams and do all this, and I did not want to. Yeah. I didn't want to do classical. I was really into jazz. I wanted to learn to play, or like ragtime music I was really into for a bit. And I wanted to do that. And it was really hard. I got fired by one of my piano teachers because I refused to do exams.
Well, that's
she
so
wouldn't
tough.
let me.
And she probably came from a world of like, a lot of arts used to have this, like the fine arts where it was like, No, the pathway is you follow this pathway and you respect the rigidity of like you learn from the masters and then you learn how to do it and you're on the pathway to
Yeah, this is the
like
only
I don't
way to
know.
go. Well, and that was the thing is that, I mean, I was a competitive dancer, so I was doing that really seriously and going somewhere. And I was like, I don't want everything in my life to be like this. I wanted levels, right? So I played soccer recreationally during the summer. And, I could have been put onto the competitive rep leagues and stuff like that, but I didn't want to. I wanted to just play. And honestly, I liked being one of the best on my team. I liked that feeling of knowing that I was really good. Like, and that was fine for the summer. I wanted to play rec league. And then in the, playing piano, I wanted to take it seriously. I wanted to be leveling up in the same way that I would be if I were taking exams. I just didn't want to have to like focus and stress out about an exam.
Yeah.
And then with dance, I was like, no, that's what I want to focus my stress on. I want to be going and competing and working as hard as I can, competing against other people that are also really good. Like, I want to be in that space. So like I wanted those levels, and you're right, it's hard to find those levels, but I just think it gets even harder as an adult.
Yeah.
There's so little availability, and I'm like, fortunately there are a lot of like recreational leagues for sports, but dance is one that, and dance and gymnastics, maybe more in gymnastics, but I would love to see this happen in gymnastics too. I would love to actually expand into some gymnastic spaces. But as you get older in dance, it's a very clear cutoff. When you graduate high school, are you going to be professional or are you going to stop dancing?
Yeah.
Those are the options. There's really nothing else unless you want to go back to beginner classes.
Right.
There's
so
nothing...
where's the world for? Yeah, exactly. Like people, it's like for adults, we let them be like, hey, it's your first time dancing. Come have fun.
Yeah.
But the person who danced their whole life up until age 18, they're going to be like, well, I'm not going to do that.
And the thing is that dance is huge.
Yeah.
Like the levels are massive. The amount of different levels there are within that. So there's like, you're learning how to bend your legs on the beat. I do not need to do that. Like that would be, I would be pulling my hair out in a class like that. I mean, I'm totally with people that do need, teaching it, I'd have no problem. But being in that class, I'd be like, I want to, give me more. I want to learn more.
And that's the part of taking it serious, but not so regimented that you're like professional
learning
level.
It seriously. I don't need people to be perceiving me seriously.
Yeah.
I want to take it seriously from the inside out, not from the outside in.
That's a tricky thing too. Like, when it comes to like sports, for example, like if I were to be on a sports team, I would want to be having fun, but I'm probably not going to be taking it that seriously when it comes to the like competitiveness of it
and the technique of it.
Exactly.
Right? I don't need to do a perfect layup.
But like
it's okay.
Maybe there should be a sports team for the people who, they played baseball all the way through high school and now they still want to be competitive.
They want to improve.
They want to improve and they want to take it seriously, but they know they're not going to play professional baseball.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Well, so that's the thing is that if you go to university or post-secondary and you join one of these dance teams, they have gotten so intense, which I think is great. Like, it's really wonderful watching these kids leave from their studios and go to a space where they're able to do their own choreography and really go into it. And that's been awesome. But there's really nothing, and I remember feeling this way about myself. I grew up at a small studio. Honestly, I didn't even try out for the university team because I was afraid of not making it, and I didn't need to be crushed like that. Like I didn't want to find out that I wouldn't make it. That would have been really hard for me. So I didn't even try out, but then I was like, okay, well, what do I do instead? Because I still want to do something. So that's why I started teaching. I literally started teaching because that was the closest I could get to being in a dance studio and learning something. And unless, as a tap teacher, I can at least like go to tap. Thankfully, is one of those genres that like a lot of people do later in life. So I was able to join like a tap, like a performing, technically a professional, but tap team in Mississauga, but the drive was huge. Like it was just a lot. So this is something that I started to create that space, and it's a pop-up event, and the idea is to kind of get it trending. And so that's the hard part about this job, is that this is one that is not a trend. This doesn't exist. I am trying to get it trending. So it is something I'd love to see more people get involved in. We have 3 levels. We're actually looking at adding a fourth one potentially this year. So we're still kind of in the talks of that. But the first one is our beginner level. So in that class, you come in and it's actually, there's less classes a day. It's much less expensive because we use local teachers. So we don't have to pay the gas to get these other teachers in. And I actually go through the first hour of the whole weekend is I actually go in there with the studio with you and do a warm up and I do a crash course. This is what we mean when we say put your arms in second. This is what we mean when we say plie. This is what we mean when we say this. And then the rest of the weekend, you learn every hour. It's a different type of dance and you're learning from different teachers, which is really cool. And it's so bonding and it's just really, my boyfriend even did it and he had a great time, I hope. I guess he wouldn't tell me otherwise. And then the next level, I call it retiree, but some people are asking me to change the name because I don't want to be called a retiree, but it's what I call myself. So that's why I use that. It's the people who grew up competitive dancing and now they don't have a space and they don't want to be a professional. So it's still challenging and difficult enough mentally that you're still getting challenged, but it's low impact physically. Because I'm not kicking myself in my head anymore. Like I'm not jumping, I'm not turning. I just want the dance to be able to feel good without it being like hurting myself the next day.
Yeah, because I mean that's the problem with so many professional things is that you have to
destroy your body.
Yeah, and that's true of like sports and of like I mean a lot of stuff. But
yeah, and so and even like this, the second day, the first class in the morning is just like the most chill yoga class we could possibly do. I have talked to our yoga teacher to say, look, people come in like wobbling in the second day, and although they want so many classes that are really intense and they're enjoying and they're going full out every single time, it's really important for the longevity of our loyalty with that customer that they protect their body. So we need to be very kind to them on that Sunday morning. And then the last group is the varsity group, the pros. That's the group that's like, yes, they want it to be challenging and they want to kick themselves in the head when they're dancing. That's encore. So that's a really cool little arm. And yeah, those are all the arms right now of Client Creatives. But the goal would be to keep creating little arms that are bringing together a niche group of people. So, you know, all these people want to dance, and so we're going to offer that. All these people want to get dressed up and do a Renaissance fair. We're going to do that. You know, it would be great to have a music scene at some point, have music festivals. That would be great. And then, you know, I would love to do one that is about, one that I really want to do. Maybe I'll keep this as a secret too. One that I want to do is one people that are really into mysteries. I did at one point do a drag mystery. And it was really great to work with all of these queens, and I really enjoyed doing it. I just feel like it could have been done better by me. I felt like I needed to nurse that baby a bit longer. So I would. I mean,
there's so many opportunities you have to create this like facilitative workshop experience. Like just in hearing you talk about it, like you could do a whole thing about people who want to get into something like Dungeons and Dragons.
Yes.
But how do you start? How do you begin? Like,
well, if you want someone to talk to you about Dungeons and Dragons on the podcast, I have some people for you.
Yeah.
Yeah. Because although we have a lot of Dungeons and Dragons that come out of the Renaissance.
Yeah.
Fair.
No, that would make sense.
Yeah.
That's cool. And when you were talking about creative things earlier, it was reminding me of. So I learned how to juggle when I worked at an arcade. I worked at the Great Wolf Lodge in Niagara Falls.
Wait, when?
At the Great Wolf Lodge.
When did you work there? What year?
I was in high school, so I was like 2006,
so
2007.
No, my boyfriend worked there too.
Oh, really?
That's why I asked. I was like, oh my gosh.
I only worked in the arcade, and it would have. Yeah, it was like 2007, 2008.
Yeah. I guess he was a lifeguard, so that.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I didn't know any of the lifeguards, but so yeah, he would know the Northern Lights Arcade at the Great Wolf Lodge.
Yeah.
It was one of those like, what's a thing I can do that like I won't get in trouble for because it's technically kind of entertaining for the guests. So over the course of the summer, I learned how to juggle. And then when I went to university at Guelph, it was like during the day where all the clubs have all their tables out on campus, and the juggling club had like a make your own juggling ball setup where you could make your own juggling ball out of like rice and balloons or whatever.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
So I did that, and
That's
then.
a good idea, yeah.
But like I was thinking, oh, like juggling's a tough one because it's a tricky enough hand-eye coordination thing that a workshop in juggling almost needs to be like over the course of a month where you like spend an hour learning a bit of the basics of it, but then also you're not going to be juggling by the end of that. You're just going to be like dropping a ball over and over and over again. But if you learned a bit of that and then on your own time in the week leading up to the next one, I think juggling is one of those real things that you need to like fail at a whole bunch and then sleep on it, and then the next time you do it, like there's
I love that. I love the idea of sleep on it.
Yeah.
Just go to bed.
And then the next time, like it'll be like the third day in a row of practicing, you'll just start catching it, kind of thing. But yeah, that's the kind of thing. Like it'd be like, oh, that'd be a cool workshop to do, but it would need to be like hey, come to this for a half hour, and then next Saturday come back again, and then the Saturday after that come back again.
I'm always questioning, do we start doing multi-week? Do we not do multi-week? Do people sign up and then they feel motivated for multiple weeks in a row? Yeah. It's always a question of like, it's just again, and that's kind of what I'm always. So I love getting customer feedback. I love people reaching out and saying, hey, I really want this to happen. And I truly believe that squeaky wheel gets the oil. So let me know what's going on. Let me know what you're looking for. I probably have someone that can host and handle it. So it's funny with our private workshops, people will reach out for the most wild things. And I'm like, yeah, actually, I do have someone that can do that. I can make that happen,
that doesn't surprise me. Speaking about like Hillside, I was going to say I've attended Hillside like twice, but maybe it's just once. Anyway, I volunteered at Hillside, and I saw some of the workshops that they held at Hillside. Are you familiar with some of the...
I have never been, which is such a, like, how do I live in Guelph? And I've never been to Hillside. I know.
I went to my first one a few years ago, and it was one of those,
so I'm not too crazy. It's just always a weekend I can't do. It's just always on, like, the wrong weekend.
If you can never go, I'd recommend it. It feels like if you distilled down the, like, essence of Guelph, of that, like, crunchy hippie vibes of Guelph into a music festival, and then... just like every element of it, like to the fact that they don't just have garbages, they have like they have like a 5-tiered recycling center where all your dishes and all the dishes that all the food vendors give are reusable dishes, because there's a whole team of like 100 volunteer dishwashers that are washing all those dishes. But everyone also respects the system because it's so ingrained into Hillside that like when you go to throw something out, you walk up to it and it's like paper towels in here and garbage in here and this in here, and everyone's respecting that system because it's Hillside. I don't know. No, you should check it out. But
it's hilarious because everything you just said is a full circle back to the first question that you asked me, and I didn't actually answer. That's very common of me, but that's exactly the answer of, you asked, why have I chosen to do this in Guelph? And it's exactly that. It's that culture. Yeah. And I've tried running things, and I still do other things. The idea is to be a pop-up company, not just in Guelph, but other places as well. Guelph is such a specific microculture in itself of people that are supporting other people. They want to be there for that. They want to put the effort in to make sure they're recycling properly. Yeah. And that is interesting, like so a go-to
can-do spirit. But also it's small enough that people feel like connected and social and like...
It's honestly, it's the effort.
Yes.
It's the people are willing to be a villager here. People are willing to show up to things and try new things and go, okay, that's cool.
I think our size helps a lot. The fact that we're big enough that if you're into a particular hobby, there's like 50 other people in Guelph that are into it too, but we're not so big that there's 500 people into it.
And it's not so industrial that you're like, where am I? Am I in the right spot?
Like, you know, Toronto's great, but people can have this like coldness to each other sometimes that like it's no wonder that there's a lot of singing the praises of Guelph on this podcast. Yes. But I was going to say that there was a workshop at the one Hillside I went to where I'm going to misquote exactly what it was. I'm pretty sure it was just like a workshop about making out as partners, and it was one of those like,
I wonder who I was trying to think if I know who would teach that.
I like walked by that, and it's like, there's like a tent full of people making out, and it's like
and you're just like, all right, good for you.
And there's and that's just like a Hillside kind of thing, right? Where you're like, like, you know, in this, people can do workshops on like making this and making that and like making out, and it's that making out. I think that'd be a good place for you to go to see like the kind of...
No, I absolutely, it's been one of those things that I'm always like, I should go. It's just because I do so much event planning, it always ends up being on a weekend.
I would recommend even going on like the one day would be good, because you can see some parts of it, but the full experience is obviously the volunteer thing, which I was able to do. I did the best volunteering thing, which was signage. So
Yeah.
you work a day before and a day after Hillside, but you don't
Oh,
actually work
right.
during the festival
During
because
it,
the signs are
yes.
already all up.
Yes.
So that worked out great. It was like the hottest weekend of the year I did it,
Yeah.
but you're volunteer. They give you lots of
It's
breaks.
always
You
the
can
hottest
go as slow as you need
weekend
to
of
if you're
the year.
volunteering, which is good.
Right, right. No, that's awesome. But yeah, that's my full circle answer for you.
But yeah,
That's why I'm in Guelph.
that's awesome. You talked a little bit about what's coming up, but if someone's listening and I don't know what exactly, I'm very behind on when episodes are going to come out.
That's
This will
okay.
probably be
That's
coming
why
out
I also
in.
was like, I wasn't quite sure what to write for. I didn't even write anything for that answer. So I was
Okay.
like, I don't know when this is coming out.
Well, if we assume someone's listening as early as sometime in February to, I guess they could be listening 100 years from now and we'll be long dead, but because that's how podcasts work. But like, if people are interested, how can they find out more? You have a website. What's your website?
My website is coolantcreatives.com.
Cool.
Very simple. And then for Instagram, we have multiple Instagram pages. So we have one for each of those little arms. But everything goes through Cool Ant Creatives. So you can always check out that Instagram page. And then if you're looking for more information on one of our things, and you can look at the corresponding Instagram page for that. And then, yes, we do have a lot of things on our website as well. But Instagram usually gets updated first.
Yeah.
It's usually where you know things first.
Very cool.
Yeah, so this year we are bringing back a few fan favorites, and there's a few new ones. So, of course, we have Encore Adult Dance Convention coming back. The first one of the year is March 14th and 15th at Evolve Dance Center in Kitchener. We're bringing back the book club market, which we're really excited about. We're looking to come back March 22nd, but that's maybe
Is that just people selling like their used books?
No, we actually do a take a book, leave a book. So there is like a used book element, but it's actually a bunch of vendors that are selling book themed things.
Oh, cool.
It's just
like
people,
comic book artists or like zines,
yeah,
like people who
some
do
zines.
local zines.
We do have some authors that are there as well,
Yeah.
so some local authors. But there'll be people like, for example, we have someone that does keychains that are like little books, and we have a lot of like candles that are scented like characters from books, and bookmarks obviously galore.
Yeah.
Every bookmark in the world, reading socks and things like that. It's really just a theme that brings people together, and that's probably where the mystery group that eventually that's going to kind of grow into something, but right now it's just in its baby phases. You always know my baby phase because it's a little market with a theme, and then eventually it either grows or I get rid of it.
Yeah.
It's one of the two things. So we have the book club market coming back in the spring. We don't have an exact date yet. We have Fairy and Iron. I do have July 11th and 12th booked at Cox Creek Cellars. I'm hoping we'll have more dates soon. And then this year we're also bringing a few new things, like a film club market, a artisans expo, and this year I'm hoping to do a holiday contest fest, which I think could be really fun. So there'll be a lot more information on that soon, but that'll be in November of 2026. So we still have a while before I put out information on that, but just some more cliffhangers to keep
Very
throwing
cool.
those out.
I know I'm going to have to. I think I already do follow you on social media. I have to go follow on my personal social media at the very least because some of those sound really cool, especially like the film one. That sounds cool.
Yeah, I'm excited for that one. It's going to be very similar to the book club market, but I'm trying to figure out some of like entertainment stuff that can make that more exciting. So if there's anything you specifically are like, I want to see this, you let me know. But no, the book club market
Unique
has been
popcorn flavors, or if someone made like their own
I do have a
popcorn
person that does
shakers
that.
or something. That would be
I'll
cool.
have them come out, or if there was like a little like a workshop like table where you could like mix your own. That'd be really fun.
I have a friend that I worked with who launched it's like a film magazine called Layered Butter.
Okay.
And I used to do their podcast with him, them and a couple other people.
Yeah.
But I know they're still doing that. They're in like Indigo shops now that
Cool.
too.
Good
And
for them. Yeah.
yeah, it just made me think that
Yeah.
like
Well, maybe I'll
I've
reach
seen
out
a little
to them
bit
and
of
I'll
like
have them come do some stuff.
yeah, I'm sure they'd like to. They're also one of the founders of it. He's like a particular poster head. So I didn't even know how big the world of like custom posters is and film poster people and like very cool.
Well, this is what I really rely on because my goal for everything that I do is doing the coordination and promotion. But it's so multifaceted in terms of all the different themes we have. I can't be a master of all of these things. So I really rely on talking to people and going, oh, and then I'm going, oh, I know this person that knows this person, and this person says you should do this, and I just do a ton of research. But at the end of the day, that's why I rely so much on customer feedback, because I'm my first Renaissance fair I ran.
You're just
I
the facilitator,
I didn't go to one.
right?
Yeah.
Have you been to any since you ran the first one?
Now I've gone and done some more in person research, but the first one I did ever was more so just like, I don't know what this is like. I'm going to see what happens. And it was so popular that I was like, oh my gosh, I have to go like head first into this. So I like go into the States and I started looking at some Renaissance fairs there and did some research.
Cool. I've been to a few, but the biggest one I went to, it was in the States. I don't remember where. It was New York State. It was on...
Was it Sterling?
Yes.
Yes.
I went to Sterling. It was really cool.
Yeah.
Like how much history there is there and how it's like built in.
Yeah, I brought my staff of 2. Yeah. So we all went over there and took a little vacation there. What's it called? I don't remember what the town is called. Oswego? Is that it?
I'm not too sure. I know I was camping like 45 minutes away.
Yeah.
And then we went in, but...
I feel like... Oh, my phone's dead. I forgot. Yeah, no, we went and we hung out there, and it was like a fun weekend, and we went and checked it out. And then I've gotten to meet a lot of like cool people from the Renaissance Fair world.
That's awesome.
So it's been really helpful.
Well, Lauren, this has been a really good conversation. Yes. We might be breaking the record of the longest episode. I don't know what the full length is going to be after
Honestly,
some
I could
edits.
have said that from the get-go. I would have let you know I'm long-winded.
But it's definitely been like the favorite sort of conversation I have where, I don't know if you felt this way too, once you get talking, the microphones kind of disappear.
Yeah, of course.
You kind of keep the audience in mind that you know you're speaking to people, but you're just having a good time talking, and I've been having a good time talking. So great to meet you. Great to chat through this.
Let this be a warning to anyone who talks to me about this stuff. I will talk to you for hours and hours on this topic. I can't stop. Like
it'd be good to even do like a part 2 at some point, maybe in a year or whenever, and just talk about what you've developed since then.
Yeah, and we can come back and we can talk more about the behind. So I'm not as like. I was scared for you for cutting this. I was like, oh my gosh, he's going to have so much trouble trying to like keep this in order. So I just want to make sure
it's okay.
I
won't do any like rearranging of it or anything. It'll just be, if anything, like the editing is like a fun just reliving of the conversation.
I just want to make sure it was easy for you. So
yeah.
I was like, I should at least give him some answers to his questions. But thank you so much for having me, and I really appreciate your attention and your questions and your curiosity.
Thanks for lending your time and your creative energy to the conversation.
Absolutely.
The audience appreciates it. But thanks, Lauren.
Thank you.
Thanks for listening to Growing Guelph. I've been your host, Jordan Sloggett. Be sure to subscribe to us on social media, on your favorite podcast app, and if you have a recommendation for a future guest you'd like me to speak to, you can reach out to me at growingguelph@gmail.com.